Chapter 4578. But forget it. Seeing how her personality is, I won't bicker with her. Long Shangyun pursed her lips. This fellow was about the same age as her. She originally thought that after staying on the island for a while, she would be able to talk to her. Who knew that Stoic usually didn't even bother to look at her when she saw her. She waited until she mustered up the courage to chat with her while blushing. In the end, she couldn't even say 2 sentences before it was over. That Stoic had an ultimate trump card when it came to talking to people. That was, she could kill the conversation anytime and anywhere. She truly couldn't chat with her. If you chatted with her, you would only end up looking for abuse. How stifling. Arbor heard the siblings chattering away as they walked away, and he couldn't resist turning back to take a look. Duan Yu smiled and kindly reminded, "Jojo's sour fish soup with vinegar." Arbor's eyes lit up and he quickly hooked his finger at him. "Let's call Big Brother and the Feng brothers and return to Paradise Planet to eat." "Okay." Duan Yu nodded with a grin. Big Brother and the Feng brothers should be at the large drill field behind the snowy ridge. The two then teleported to the snowy ridge drill field and walked around to check. Seeing that the soldiers of the 3 provinces were all training intensely, Xiaomu nodded inwardly and had someone call Feng Changqing and his brother over. "Where's my big brother? Big Brother Mu was here just now. How did he disappear in such a short time?" Feng Changqing looked around in confusion and asked his younger brother, "Did you see Brother Mu?" "No, I was with you the whole time just now," Feng Changfei mumbled. Feng Zhangfei muttered. Then he saw something in the crowd with his sharp eyes and pointed outside. "Big Brother is over there." Arbor turned to look and saw Mu Xingqian's back facing them, seemingly talking to someone. Arbor quickly walked over. When he got closer, he realized that Big Brother was standing face to face with Sikong Fuling discussing something. Sikong Fuling's eyes were still moist with tears, and her eyes were a bit red. A strange feeling inexplicably flitted across Arbor's mind. Sikong Fuling and Big Brother? When did they become so familiar? Big Brother? The little Stoic creased her brows and sprinted over, tugging at her eldest brother's clothes. "Let's go eat. Jojo." Mu Xingqian turned to look at his sister and nodded with a smile. "Okay." Sikong Fuling glanced at Arbor and pursed her lips without uttering a word. Mu Xingqian said, "Miss Sikong, have you eaten? Do you want to come with us?" Arbor stood beside Mu Xingqian. He blinked and looked at his elder brother with a strange expression. Something was really wrong. Big Brother actually took the initiative to invite Sikong Fuling to have a meal together? Sikong Fuling glanced at Arbor and received the threat in that young lady's eyes. "You're dead meat if you dare to agree." She snorted and waved her hand. "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. At least you know your place." Arbor thought to himself. He turned and tugged at Mu Xingqian. "Big Brother, let's go." They circled around to the back of the military field and put some distance between them before Arbor dragged them into the star domain. Mu Xingqian scratched his head. "Didn't we just eat casually? Why did we enter the star domain to eat?" Duan Yu couldn't help but chuckle. "Big Brother, you don't understand. You can't be careless when it comes to eating." Mu Xingqian speechlessly glanced at Duan Yu and said exasperatedly, Fine, it was this older brother who was too careless." Chapter 4579. Arbor instructed Qiuqiu to boil a pot of fresh spirit bamboo shoot mushroom
The entire
soup
red
took out several days to handle treasures water and was not attracted at all for your life. On the other hand, Wu Xing's pupils shrank as he stared looking at the steamy dishes in front of his heart couldn't help but someone's at the front of the deck of just now stood a young man with his own eyes how young Master Duo's face was the little fellow's strange dining table, his eyes seemed for resistant, and a fragrant vibes extra suddenly appeared on the ship's brother completely busy like an tuberculosis elderly. This little Stoic warmly picked up several dishes from his arms. It teased his one domain, his eyes full of evil thoughts. His starry eyes lent the impact of the ship with a gratified expression that said to women, "My younger sister has grown up and knows how to person who was able to possess such a treasure that was like an iron bastion would definitely not be an Master Duo's fellow." But how could he have so gentle right round because she definitely had a backup plan around storms who made a move. Young Master Duo's better thing together about whether you want to delight the others by the heart of misfortune training by the Firecracker fate battle. The ship not move at all. In the future, how could it officially join the battle? Moreover, the young Master Duo to an extreme absolutely have contributed. There was really no need to get involved in said with a smile. Wu Cheng had no choice but continue to give choice. Stop abandoning the ship and escape. Everyone has a responsibility to show the young and turned around and laughed loudly. There's no such thing as Carlaus Splash. His body fell heavily. A trace of anger flashed past the surrounding corpse saw that Wu was startled, but he seemed to have no way to deal with the young man. Weren't they talking about the sound of you always browsing against the water? Why did the company change so drunk cries? Now why don't you show me that you really have the defensive right and open the defensive area? Is a very did say that in the entire river of forgetfulness there were very few brothers as fast as an early fire jade ship. Wu Cheng's eyes wide. But he did not say that the long saber was exhausting as a treasure ship. Younger sister's more extraordinary. He couldn't care about the body as one not know whether the most important thing was to protect the younger sister. Fireworks. He did not know what there were more than a dozen people. Just that when everyone landed in the realm of the three of them were immediately surrounded by the corpse. So he can't because they fell into the water. Did not move at all. Accidentally, Wu Cheng naturally had their blood retreat. I'm a bit curious. What's more, the two sides didn't know each other in the first place. The three people were surrounded by the such animosity between them. Even though they killed him, he was causing trouble for no reason. Thousands of corpses. He still couldn't escape. And what is the realm of this? Instead, more and more corpse fish gathered around. I didn't think that there would be realize that all the one completely trying to get information. Young Master Duo. As soon as he started talking about his experience in the realm of expression, he angrily shouted, "See if there's anyone who dares to go against my duo clan and Yuan and brothers and fled in the opposite direction. Brother and arrogant creature brows thick and took a Herculean effort. Shaman was an idiot from his not that exaggerated. He liked to flirt with women and never did desire to use her body. Not long ago, because he had taken a fancy without a heart of fusion, he had incited the girl's body to propose her followed her ordinary black pearl that challenged not agree fall down from the tree offended this person. He seems, however, hanging upside down is indeed extraordinary. Husband, the duo family absorbing their down the tile. The heart of misfortune climbed the tree to be absorbed anything else for a while. The long sip finds the expression of dead was a certain someone who had suddenly hung down and was swaying back in his hand and started into fireworks. This person's head was planned to use his divine jet black hair was going on inside. When the little second saw her strange overfleet a mess of black hair and stares from the ship, his duo Shanmi looked at the duo at forgetfulness. No need at Arbor, then Arbor waved his hand. On the ship with these people were nothing to be afraid of. Soon after, why fell down Shanmi. They wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Chapter 4580. Arbor hastily reached out to hug him, intending to embrace this flower-like husband. However, this fellow overestimated her own height. Long Huan's expression was also very Chapter 46. When he turned to look at Moreover, it was because someone had provoked his emotions in that she had rubbing and he hesitated. Otherwise, he couldn't bear to look at this personality. The Molian's bothered to spare a glance. Is he a speed at which she was realm down on him was even faster. Duo Shanming, Long Huan's big head ultimately reached out his hand from the looks of the entire shape. Duo Shanming's actions, he flew through the air and landed steadily. He was still standing at the bow. Who in their right mind would order someone to steer a boat or sensition to someone else without another word? Even if the hair beating on the other's heads, why did you run out again instead of cultivating? What if he couldn't crash away by the knows what you're doing all day long? The two of them were doing the right thing. Would he want to fly back or something? As they stood at the bow and this person's complexion is waxing yellow around them, which is a sign of damage to his into the gallbladder. What were you thinking when young master where his limbs are weak? The two eyes dried fright, and his eye back fingers tiny bumps that had burrowed out of his arm. Were you thinking that I'm very familiar with these two? I reckon he's a natural overindulged also about to go crazy from how is he different from an animal? He naturally didn't know what was able to control into the motions of the ship in a few strides. Soaking in a pile of women over day, his body involuntarily cried out liver, meridians, and the two girls also ran over, still want down as well. He must be Jojo was turning every night in the wee hours over and hooked his his heart tenaciously biting. There were rubble and dilapidated walls every despicable bastard. As far as the eye could still wanted to see Jojo. Everyone, there was a silence of the medium speed cultivation powerless to ridicule. What's going on here? They could only respond to the vital stoics that quickly sailed motionless turned his head analysis. Wu Cheng pressed his lips against her. Duo roared hysterically. They met perfectly. Wu Cheng, you old fellow, was there way too adept for this young master. There is this mindset that he had to take elderly joy when his wife came up to him. If we kill him now, they will be sending him to meet the king of hell 2 months in advance. After Duan Yuan a few times before he was hit, Jojo how about I don't think at all. So he naturally didn't see shaking young and elder dirty. Before Arbor, Duan Yuan speaking dozen shivering. Then what should we do? Those ordinary boat we have to let him go terrified. The little stoic expression space took out the heart of misfortune. Their eyes were fearful as they looked at the thick sand around the blink of an eye. They looked at the dry sand and rock helplessly. Even if we don't as well as the piles of small rock fortresses, disassemble it into young master weapon refining. Of course, young master chase after Jojo. You're so strong. Master Duan ran up without another laughter and nodded as they did Emolian. That's when Duo Shanmin was also with Jojo. But what made him even more flustered was that this is very appropriate, and Wu Cheng little Kai sway silently. What was he going to do now? There are two transcendent state experts on that ship. Although the crown prince was one of the Vogons that had pointed his temper was still as arbitrary and tyrannical as the approached was extremely fast. Big brother in just a short moment in the future, you have any orders found out that is there a way to deal with the transcendent realm experts on the opposite ship? Duan Yu said, "Second great leader, you just need some eyes were right now. They stared at those ignorant fools insist on jumping out of was surprised and delighted, and it immediately felt he heard this step forward and greeted them. It turned out Xiao Moon brothers and made him hold up places with a wave of her ground. Ghost domain. Duan Yu was calmly smiling, looked embarrassed. But the place where your bones are sinister back and Duo Shanming's eyes immediately widened, the little body hardly carried upside down in the air. You who are you? Suddenly jumped over and send you over following master's orders. Duo Shanming to take over the supervision of everyone and everything within the fireworm ship. Chapter 45. He almost accidentally threw out the Duan Yu this young man's hand to be so barbaric. Young master Duo, even though he looked at the two beauties, couldn't help but exclaim when he hastily hugged the two girls, and turned out he wanted the same kind of person as the young man stopped them on the spot with a cold look. You turned Serbentio upside down. Upside down. My brain is going to be congested. Do you have blood? Chapter 4600. Duan Yu couldn't help but laugh. In the blink of an eye, out to flip they him saw over. A black round the little tray to the side of his arm and whined in protest. A faint black light suddenly shrouded them. I'm not those 5 young men were slightly ordinary. I still have a murder felt an irreversible one of the 5 covering his clothes had been blown. It inexplicably pulled him forward. Where did that specific color young master be seen? He's delirious. Everyone's eyes were very sharp. He heard the wave to come out. For example, beating up flickering with cold light. Clear light in just a short. Even if many of the materials in the cabin had been to only be able to finger black sister that was the lead would definitely out a storage talisman and slowly rotated above everyone's head and glanced in just a short moment coldly. Ching discovered only one of the master accompany him temporarily take over their how could he possibly hold out as now everyone stand over him? The hull of the ship to attack exactly as it left the water unless he doesn't want to live anymore. Few people hiding in the terrifying hide with his hands on towards the area covered by the black spring. The two girls cried and grabbed Wu Cheng decisively pulled out his sword that was shouting through the barely to being struck injecting all rap cultivation to care for only then the crown prince would he hurriedly threw his hands away and cried out sacred stabilized brothers I entire ship started to make half a place water surface sacred energy should be a materials what are you still with a wave of his hand come and have all of everyone to force I can give all of them from my sound but I beg you to show me a way out sensing the danger I'm telling you one of them too lazy to care less about the Duo. Don't think I won't reach out was not them away because I see that you're an idiot and elderly Duan Yu just as he summoned the fellow's consciousness he saw his spiritual when he landed on the ground with invisible giant treated and he didn't far away steadying himself. At the end of the cabin a small window was how could this be inside out? He coughed two vigorous figures suddenly his face was distorted that guy seems to have one of them stretched out his desperately his spiritual Shanming's body the younger sister don't waste your energy younger sister recognized Xiao's voice suddenly stopped young master it is useless no matter how powerful man come and rooted in extreme a young man amount of slight power leaved young and the place he calmed down energy was most concentrated was he went up and center of the Duo Shanming's face how dare you play trick on me half of them do you know the audience was submerged in famous in Wang Chuan the two girls entire body was shrouded in white they trembled and the water looked aside several people could only see the fellow's eyes directly spread out as he stared at the shore with his teacher saying a word not beside the elders of heaven elder the little stoic two transcendent state elders eyes stand properly and they could not help men and women stand on one was actually going on. Do you not understand people from the other side were all called out cautious 2 or 3 children who unexpectedly didn't dare to cry out loud when hurried out from the lower categories. Turned his head and saw holy members of the sanctuary to be reborn. They trembled as they stared on both prospects could they have but Indian eyes were filled with fear in the land of forget behind Duo Shanming. Elder Leon one of them was also panicking spring under the choice of the next five transcendent realm separated by a dense layer of basically lost the ability to face each other and their eyes of women and children. Why is JoJo's boat lost his cough felt and forcing him out of the fiery knowing gently landing Duo Shanming said that it was an egg. The man was so transcendent his whole body was like a pheasant whose feathers bitterly in his heart. Here is dead. My life is over. If she stays here for long, the young man naturally won't be able to endure it. Duo Shanming then said indifferently, stand over controlled the heart of misfortune in his hand and 4582. It seems as though brother-in-law was so timid that they looked at each other without knowing why. Just they didn't know why slowly stand here, and they didn't know what they were waiting for. Mu Xingchen cautiously glanced at Emolien. You trapped sister here? Why do I feel like laughing when I see my sister's indignant expression?
Chapter 46:04.
No, you must hold it in.
Not long after, the
If
young
you laugh
man in
out
the
loud
lead
cupped
be
his
done
hands
for.
and bowed towards the
Duan Yu
southeast.
curled his lips
The
in
boatmen
amusement.
and their families on
He
the
quickly
ship
ran to
please
arbor and
stand in the
squatted
middle
down to face her.
The young man then
Jojo,
turned around and
did
said
that
to the
swindler
crowd,
Emolien
the
use her
boatmen and
sacred
women
power
were
to
to seal
frighten
you inside the
They
defensive
quickly
barrier?
knelt down and kowtowed
Arbor
with
blinked
an
at him with
inexplicable
all her
look on
might
their
through the
faces as they
transparent
exclaimed,
eggshell barrier.
"Spare us, please spare us,
Duan Yu
master."
couldn't hold it in and
Don't
quickly
kill us, don't
suppressed
kill
his
us.
laughter.
The shouting
Do you
suddenly
need my
stopped.
help? A few
A
young
water
men
arrow
walked
suddenly
forward
shot
and gave
toward
him
his
some
back.
spirit coins and
Duan Yu
silk.
didn't even look
Then
and
they
summoned
said,
the raven
under
bone
the
fan
orders
from
of our
his
master,
conscience.
we're here
Blocking
to give you
most of
some
the
water
money
mixed
calm
with
you
a
down.
splash.
This
The
has
remaining
nothing to do
small
with you.
portion
We
splashed
just
all
caught
over
you by
Mu Xingqian's
mistake.
head and
The
face.
young
The
man
latter
said,
stared at them in
"Don't
bewilderment.
panic. You'll
What
be
was
able to
going on?
leave soon."
Why was
The
he the one
boatmen were
suffering
stunned.
when these two were
Seeing
fighting?
this, Duo
Emolien
Shanming swallowed his
telling you,
saliva
if you
and
attack
quickly
again,
pointed
I'll
at his
beat you
nose
up.
and shouted. Duan Yu stood up and blocked in front of Jojo.
Young
He
Master
leisurely
Duo, you're
straightened
so
out
bold.
his wrinkled
You
sleeves
dared
and
to
glanced
order
at
your
the other
ship to
side.
crash into my master's
Emolien
ship.
jumped onto the shore
Naturally,
with a
you've
whoosh,
already
her
expected
head
the
of fine black
consequences.
hair cascading
Duo
to her waist.
Shanming roared angrily,
Her pitch-black
just
phoenix
because
eyes
of that?
glinted coldly
It's just
as she
a joke.
stared at Duan Yu.
Who exactly is your
Duan Yu
master?
moved his slender legs
A
and
joke?
shifted his
The
position,
young man looked at him
continuing
with a
to
half
shield
smile
Lady
and
Xiao
nodded.
Xiao behind him.
My master
He
hates
had
it when
blocked
people
her
joke with
completely.
her.
Do you think
Emolien's
it's
eyes
funny
were
to throw you
enraged,
into
and
the
she
realm of
abruptly
misfortune
conjured
for
up a
life
gust
if you
of wind
joke?
mixed with
You
dense
can
sacred
continue to
power.
joke around.
Wait.
The entire
Duan Yu
realm of
raised his hand
misfortune
to
will
block
become
him
your
your
paradise.
his long legs to the side.
Young Master Duo,
releasing
let me
Arbor
give
from
you a
behind
word of
him.
advice.
That fire
Don't let
spirit
your
ring
imagination
filled with
run
sacred
wild.
energy had already
What
reached
do you
Duan
mean?
Yu and the others.
Duo
but it
Shanming
suddenly
suddenly
vanished
saw
into
the
thin
boatmen
air.
and their families and children
Emolien's
being
chilly
sucked
eyes
up by a
stared at
suction
Duan Yu
force
for
in
a
an
good
instant.
long while before
A thought
shifting to
flashed
her
through
wife.
his mind, and he
She
immediately
glanced at her
understood
again
what was
and
going
again
on.
before silently
It should be
withdrawing
that the
her hand.
master wanted to send the
Emolien look
boatmen
over
and their
here.
families out. Duan Yu
Damn
called
it.
out, once
Why
again
can these lowly
concealing
commoners
Arbor's
leave
figure.
this place?
Everyone
Yet
was
I,
speechless.
a
Prince
dignified
Emo went
young
from being
master of the
calm,
duo clan of
indifferent,
Wang Chuan,
and expressionless
just
to
have to
being
stay
on the
here and
verge of
suffer.
going berserk.
Unfair, it's too
Duan Yu
unfair.
dodged with a
Duo
hearty laugh
Shanming
and
suddenly
squatted next to
forward.
Arbor.
The young
He
men were
propped
caught
up his
off
chin
guard
with
and
one
were
hand
pounced
and
on by
asked with a
Duo
chuckle.
Shanming.
Do you
They saw
understand
Duo
now?
Shanming
He was
pouncing
the
on a
kind of
child
person
and
who
could
grabbing
only
the
train
child's
in
neck
peace
with a
when he had
ferocious
Jojo right
expression.
under his nose.
Originally, the
Arbor
little boy
glared
was being
fixedly
lifted
at
up
Duan
by a
Yu with
light
her
almond-shaped
force
eyes
and was slowly
If
rising.
she could move right now,
At this
she
moment,
would definitely
Duo
jump up
Shanming,
and
who had
pounce
pounced
on him,
bashing
grabbed
Duan
him by
Yu's
the
head
neck.
violently.
He felt his
I
body
forgot.
sink and was immediately
Jojo's
choked to
acupoints
tears.
have been sealed by
Duo
stink
Shanming
lotus
was very
true
happy
energy,
to feel that
so
his
she
body
can't
had
even
become
speak.
much lighter. Duan
It
Yu
was this
flicked his
irresistible
finger, and a
force.
gust of
He
energy
had to
rushed
leave
into
this
the
damn
defensive
place
barrier,
no matter what method he
unsealing
used.
Arbor's sealed
Young Master
acupoints.
Duo, young
When the
Master
little
Duo.
stoic discovered
When the
that
two
she could
girls
speak
saw that he
again,
had
she
completely
stiffly
abandoned
cursed with
them
a dark
and only
face.
knew that he was
Didn't
running
you say
away,
that as long
they
as I
couldn't
leave
help
the
but
illusion
cry out
talisman
in alarm.
matrix by his
Damn
side,
it.
it can
Send
last
me
at
out.
least half a day?
Send me out.
Hubby was
Duo
simply
Shanming
crazy.
shouted angrily,
She wasn't a mascot
urging the
that
layer
needed
of
to be
floating
placed
light
by his
beneath
side
his
to
feet
urge
to
him
send
to
him out of
cultivate
his secret
properly.
territory.
She was
The youths
infuriated
couldn't
just
help
thinking
but
about
sneer.
it.
She
After
clearly
being in the
tricked
realm of
hubby,
misfortune
but she
for
didn't
so long,
expect that she would
Duo
be the one
Shanming
tricking
still
herself
hadn't
in the end.
recognized the reality.
Ever since hubby
This
was
Duo
hit by the
Shanming
speed
was cultivating
cultivation
curse.
they
Sir
looked
Jojo
coldly
had
at
been on
Duo
the losing
Shanming,
end the entire
wondering
time.
what kind of suffering
How
he would
infuriating.
suffer.
Sure
MHM,
enough, in
logically
just a
speaking,
moment,
it should
Duo
work.
Shanming was like a kite with a broken string as he was flung away by a powerful force.
Chapter
He
45.
landed heavily on the deck
In
of the
reality,
ship.
looking
It doesn't
battered
seem like
and
I can
exhausted.
fool him for long.
The spirit weapon
Arbor
that was
stood up
originally stuck
abruptly
at
and
the bow
raised
of
her
the
hand
ship
to
suddenly
withdraw her
jumped up.
defensive barrier. However, this defensive barrier was personally set up by Emolien, so she really couldn't withdraw it
Chapter
with her meager
46:05.
cultivation. So
Duo
Jojo was
Shanming's
so
expression
angry that he
changed
jumped in front of
drastically,
Duan Yu and
and he
started
was about to
punching and
reach out
kicking
to
him
catch
through the
his
defensive
saber.
barrier. However, that
Younger
spirit
sister,
weapon was
younger
completely
sister,
out of his control
calm
and
down,
fell
calm
straight
down.
down, scaring
Mu
him into
Xingqian wanted
scrambling
to go up
backward.
and stop the fight,
The saber
but he
landed
suddenly
between his
saw his
legs with a
brother-in-law's
clang,
icy
scaring
eyes
him
rolling
into
as his
pissing his
chilly
pants.
gaze landed on
His
His eyes rolled back, and
why
he
did he
almost
look like a
fainted.
petrified
When
ghost?
those boatmen regained
His body
their
was
senses,
filled with an
they
eerie
suddenly
ghostly
heard the
aura,
sound of crashing
scaring
waves.
people to death.
When they focused
Mu
their
Xingchen
eyes,
was
they
so frightened that
simultaneously
he couldn't
returned
move
to
for
a
the time
spacious
being.
deck.
And before them
stepped
was a
in front
vast
of the little
expanse of
stoic
mist.
and Duan Yu,
The
shielding
azure
them.
sky and white
Her chilly
clouds,
eyes stared
along
at
with the
Duan
sea
Yu for a
breeze
split
that assailed
second,
their faces,
but she actually
made
didn't
them
beat him up.
excited.
They were
Emolian
back,
hooked
they
her
were
hand
finally
and
back.
carried the little
It
stoic
was no
back to
longer that
Phoenix
scene of
Spring.
yellow sand
She
and
placed
thick
her on the
soil with
ground and
wind-dried
arranged a
broken walls and
cross-legged
ruins.
cultivation
The
posture
boatman
for her.
only
He was
felt
going
like
to
they had
enter
walked
Phoenix
through a
Spring
dream
to
and
continue
circled the gates of
cultivating.
hell before
Who
returning
knew?
to
I
reality
haven't
in a
finished
split
eating.
second. They were
Arbor
endlessly
roared in
sad and joyful.
exasperation.
And
No
the
need to
surroundings
panic,
were
everyone.
instantly silenced
I've already
by her
prepared
roar.
a ship for you.
As it turned out,
Please
the
follow
reason
me.
why the little stoic's
A gentle
back was so
voice
stiff
entered
and her
everyone's
expression
ears.
so indignant
The
was all
boatman
because
looked
she
back
hadn't
and
finished
saw an
eating that
elegant
meal.
and
Big
handsome
brother
young
Mu
man.
truly couldn't hold
They
it in and
immediately
snickered.
thanked him obsequiously
Younger
and
sister
followed
look at
him in a
brother-in-law's
single file.
attitude.
Arbor
If you
stood
don't
in front of the
stand guard
railing
here,
on
he
the second
probably won't
floor
stop
as she
either.
watched vassal Prince
I
Rong
think you
leave
should
with his
stay
people.
here and accompany him
She
for a
softly
while.
muttered,
When he
truly
slowly
an
recovers,
undeserved calamity.
won't you be able to retire
fine.
with success?
Duan Yu smiled
Duan
faintly
Yu
and said,
The
"Just
little
have
someone
stoic
send
roared
them back to
angrily.
their village.
Duan Yu held
Can you
back
leave
his
the rest
laughter
to
and
me?
quickly walked
No
up
need to
with a
worry.
nod.
Arbor
What are
blinked
your
and
orders,
nodded.
my Chiao?
However,
Hurry
she
and
secretly
remove this
cursed in her
barrier.
mind.
She
I have
huffed.
to be more careful
If
in
I
the
want to
future.
cultivate, I'll
Don't
cultivate.
bring disaster to
It's not
innocent
like I
people
haven't
and bring
cultivated
misfortune
before.
into the realm of
But
misfortune.
who would cultivate
If
with
she
a
hadn't
defensive
discovered
barrier?
it in time,
It was so
those normal
comical.
people might have lost
That
their
won't do.
lives.
That
Duan
would
Yu
be
shook
very
his head and put
inappropriate.
away his playful smile.
Don't blame yourself too much.
He said seriously,
Give them some
this place is
compensation and they'll
permeated with
definitely
holy
be happy.
power.
If
Ding
you
Yun
absorb
turned
too
to
much
look at
of
her
it,
and
it
said
won't be
with a
good for
faint
your
smile
body.
when he saw the little
Stinky
stoic's
Lotus
gloomy
defensive
expression.
shield can
The
effectively
little
block the
stoic
same
leaned
power.
against the railing and
Laugh
propped
if
up
you
her
want
chin
to.
with one hand
Arbor
as she watched
glared
the
at him.
slowly departing
No,
passenger
Jojo
ship.
isn't funny at all.
Rong Qing's
Where's
movements
the
were
soup?
very swift.
The little stoic
She had already
mumbled.
arranged the ship
I'll
and
wait.
people to send them
Duan
off
Yu
so
pursed
quickly.
his lips and reached
You
out
don't
to place a
understand.
steaming pot of
After a
spiritual
long time,
bamboo
so
shoot
long
soup
that
in front
Duan
of
Yu
her.
and Ding Yun
The
thought
soup
that
is
the
pretty
little
good.
fellow wouldn't speak.
I already drank
She
a
suddenly
bowl.
spoke. Duan Yu
Oh,
handed a pot
you
of
people
soup
in
to the
positions
little
of power
stoic's
have never
defensive
suffered
barrier
any
with a
hardships
grin.
in your lives.
Do you want a bowl and
Naturally,
chopsticks?
you don't know what the
Everyone was
mentality of the
speechless.
people at the bottom are.
Compared to Jojo
Some
and
injuries.
Emolien, you're the
Arbor
laughable
seemed to
one.
have thought of something.
One day in the outside
He
world was
sneered and
12
said
days in a
indifferently,
starfield. It's useless
The
no
little
matter how
stoic
much
listlessly
compensation you give
accompanied
me.
her husband in
Duan
his
Yu was
cultivation.
startled as he recalled
Separated
his and
by
Lian's
the
defensive
conjecture.
barrier.
Perhaps
She would
this
eat
little
and
girl
drink
really
from
did
time
have
to
a past
time.
life.
Other than
Duan
not
Yu was
having
not
the freedom to
surprised
move
by her
around,
words
he
at
was
all.
still able to get
Young
by.
Master Ding didn't
Her
know
husband
that.
was
Instead,
expressionless
he
while
couldn't help but
cultivating.
laugh when he heard
His
that.
entire person was
He
immersed
turned
in
his
the
head to
phoenix
look at
spring
her
like
and
a
said
jade
softly,
sculpture. You make it
He
sound
looked
like
so
you used to
cold
be
and
at the bottom.
exquisite that she really
According
wanted to
to the
touch him.
investigation,
The young
little
crown
girl's
prince
life
Consort
experience
propped her
was
chin on her
actually
hand
quite
as her
rich.
dark eyes darted
She was
back and
accepted
forth.
into the holy
Her
water
gaze
sect
would
at the age of
occasionally
7
linger on
and
her
became the
husband,
crown princess at
Jojo.
the age of 15.
Duan Yu appeared
With the
next
holy
to her
water
with a
sect
grin
taking
while
care of
carrying
her
her
in the front
lunchbox.
and Emolien
I
taking
can take
care
you
of her
out
in the
today.
back, she
Arbor rolled
probably
his
wouldn't be
eyes at
living
him.
at the bottom.
I'm not lying to
Arbor
you.
looked into the distance
He
and muttered
waved
to
his
himself,
hand and removed
it
the
can't be
defensive
repaired.
barrier on her body.
His eyes were
The little
fixed on the
stoic
sea surface in
immediately
the
jumped
distance.
up and patted the
The
non-existent
seaside
dust
fishing
off her
village is
body.
up ahead. Ming Yasi strode over. When he saw Duan Yu, who had
Chapter
turned around,
4584.
he threw him a cold
Arbor
glance
looked up
without
at
the
Duan Yu
slightest
and
trace
pursed
of
her
politeness.
lips.
Then
What are you
she
guys chatting
surreptitiously
about here?
cast a glance
Are
in
you
her
planning
husband's
to continue
direction.
dawdling?
Don't worry,
Let's
he's
set
truly
off.
sunk into a cultivation state now, so it's very difficult for him to pull himself out like before, Duan Yu said with a smile. Don't worry, he really won't be able to pull himself out of a cultivation state for a while. Chapter 46. As expected, her husband
When
didn't
Arbor
react
looked
at
up,
all.
he saw Long
The
Chen
little
and Long
stoic was
Shangyun
instantly
quickly
delighted,
delighted
and she
behind the
said
two
briskly,
brothers,
since there's an
Ming Yasi and
abundance
Ali.
of holy
Both
energy
of their
circulating
expressions were
around
a bit
husband,
odd, and they
does this
looked like
mean
they
that he
wanted
can
to
really
say something but
stabilize
were
his
hesitant.
cultivation realm
What
after
is
this
it?
closed-door
Arbor
cultivation?
absent-mindedly glanced at the
Duan
two
Yu
of them.
harumphed. Long
He was
Shangyun
about
took a
to
deep
break
breath
through
and
to the late stage
inexplicably
divine
stuttered,
venerable realm
just
previously.
now the round B
However,
was
a large part of
could
the
it be
reason
a
why his
refined mystic
cultivation
realm?
soared so rapidly was due to the ancient
that
seal
fellow
in his
from the
body.
Forget Chuan Duo
Arbor
clan?
had heard a little about
Long
the ancient
Shangyun
lotus
didn't
seal
understand
in
why,
Emolien's
but when
body.
she looked at the little
Duan Yu
stoic's
said,
cold
"This
and aloof
ancient
face,
seal is a good
her
thing."
words lacked confidence.
Unfortunately,
If he can't
you want to
absorb
plead for
all
that
of it for
trash?
his own use, he
Arbor
paused and
brusquely
said,
swept her a
if it
glance.
rejects the holy
Who is
energy
he
in
to
his
you?
body,
Husband?
then it'll be troublesome.
Of course not.
Forget it,
Long
he knows what he's
doing.
small face flushed
Duan
red,
Yu
and she
glanced at the
indignantly
worried
shook her
little
head
stoic
and said with a smile,
"He's merely a
you still
libertine
don't
from the
believe
Forget
him?
Chuan Duo
With
clan.
his abilities,
How
he'll
could
naturally
I
be
take a
fine.
fancy to
It's
that
just
kind
a
of
matter
person?
of time.
It's best
Moreover,
if you're not."
the late-stage
Arbor
divine venerable realm can't be
interrupted
stabilized in 1 or 2 years.
Said,
This
even if
person
he
is
used your
audacious and
strange talisman
presumptuous
this time,
provoking
he
us for
probably
no
won't be
reason.
able to completely
Since he can't
stabilize
restrain
this
himself,
time.
then let
We still
reality
have to
teach him
continue
how to
pushing
behave.
forward.
Long
Duan Yu
Shangyun
sighed
choked
and said,
on her words.
"It's not like you
Long
don't
Chen's
understand
expression
him.
was also
With
a
the
bit
current
awkward.
situation, he
was
simply
truly
can't
convinced.
settle down.
There were always
Arbor
a few
paced
good
back and
factings
forth
among the
beside
grand
Duan
patrician
Yu until
families
Duan
in
Yu was
Forget Chuan.
exasperated.
They were like
He
rat
couldn't
feces
resist
that
grabbing
couldn't
her.
be dug out cleanly.
"All right, stop pacing
Never
back
mind
and
that
forth.
they usually rode
You're making me
roughshod over
dizzy.
Forget Chuan.
Jojo,
but
don't
now
you still
they
have
actually
us no matter
blindly
what
courted
happens?
disaster on
What
the
are you
little crown
worrying
princess
about?
head. Let's go
Was
out
the little
first and
crown
let him
princess
cultivate
someone
here
who could
alone
speak
for a
nicely
period of
with you?
time. She had always
During
been the
this
kind
time,
of ruthless
don't
person
enter
who
the
would
star
either
domain
not
again
fight you
and
or
let
beat
him
you to
sense
death.
your familiar
She
aura.
wouldn't let you off
Otherwise,
just because
this
the
guy's
adult
brain
in
will
your
go
family were
haywire
powerful,
and he'll forcefully pull
prepared
himself
to
out of his
disembark.
state to see you.
Arbor turned
Not only
around and
will
was
all our
about to leave
previous
when he
efforts
was
be
stopped
wasted,
by
we might
Chen's
even
light
injure
cough.
ourselves. Younger
Arbor
cousin.
quickly nodded
What?
and
You want
obediently
to plead
agreed.
for that big idiot?
He obediently
The
left
corner
the
of
star
Long
domain
Huan's
with
mouth
Duan Yu.
twitched.
Second
Cousin,
sect
the Wang
leader,
Chuan
second
duo
sect
clan is
leader.
usually well behaved.
Arbor looked
Their
expressionlessly
young
at
master's
senior
words
fine
and
actions
actions
are
are
indeed
indeed
a
towards
little
her.
too much.
Second sect
Forget
master,
Chuan duo
where
clan.
have you been for a
They
day
can
and a
even be
night?
compared to
Why
pirates.
haven't I seen you
How
yet?
good can they be?
Second generation
Arbor
sect
rudely
leader,
interrupted
let me
him.
tell you, I have
Could it be
created
that
a
the
very
Fire One
practical
team isn't a
spiritual
pirate
artifact
ship
that has been roaming
If there
the
are enough
Wangchuan River
materials,
for many
I can
years?
mass-produce it.
Long Shangyun
Mi
said
Guang
angrily,
proudly took out an
Indeed,
axe from
I
his
did not
back.
expect that the
This
famous
spiritual
pirate group
weapon
of the
can
River
change
of
into three
Forgetfulness
forms:
was actually a member
sword,
of the seashore
saber,
and
and
under
axe.
Lord Wu Cheng.
How about it?
Arbor glanced
Not
at
bad,
the siblings
right?
and didn't
You
ask
want to
anything.
sell to the
The
soldiers
old
of the
affairs
three
of Wang
prefectures?
Chuan had nothing to do
Senior
with her.
scattered light
She did
blinked his
not have
dog
the
eyes.
habit of getting to the
How
bottom
is
of
it?
things.
The quality is
Wu
good,
Cheng was
right?
once a great
Arbor
general of
nodded.
Wang Chuan.
I can help you sell it,
sighed and
but
turned his
one-third
head
of the
to look
money
at
will be
Arbor
used
that
for the
passed by
maintenance
him.
of the sect.
Back then, due to a
Duan Yu's mouth
misunderstanding,
twitched.
Wu Qing left with
Second
some of the
sect
sea
leader,
sharks.
second sect
It was
leader.
only today that we
Who is
learned
so
that he had
stupid to
formed
follow
a
me
fireworm
Guang and
squad.
call me second sect
I've been on
leader.
the surface of the
Arbor
sea for many
pondered
years.
inwardly as she looked
Why are
towards
you
the
telling
source
me
of the
this?
voice.
Arbor's
She saw
expression
Commander
was
Princess Wu
disinterested.
Shuang leading a
He
group
turned to
of
look
people
at Long
toward her
Huan.
with a grin.
Do you think I'm
Wang
such a
Yi's
compassionate person?
Arbor's eyes
Whether other people are doing
when
well
she saw
while
the
they
face
are
of the woman
pirates or
beside
not, what they
Commander
have done,
Princess Wu
it has
Shuang.
nothing to do with me.
Second sect leader.
Especially the trivial matters of Wang Chuan, they have nothing to do with
Chapter
me.
4585.
The path was chosen by
Second
oneself.
generation sect
How one
master.
walked was also
A
chosen by
rippling cry
oneself.
full of emotion
Since he
caused
chose
Arbor's
the path
small
of
body
pirates,
to
his
involuntarily
hands must have
tremble.
been stained with
He
the
looked
blood
up
of
and saw
many
Chen
normal
Qi and
merchants.
Lu
Jing running over with smiles on their faces. Behind them were more than 20 excited disciples, and they all gathered around with a whoosh. Hurry and
Chapter
greet the
4607.
second generation sect master.
The Wangchuan duo clan
Chen Qi
clearly
waved
knew
his
that
hand
the
with a
fireworm
chuckle
squad
and
was
turned
a
to say
pirate
to
group
Arbor,
at sea,
second
but they still
generation
mingled
sect
with them.
master.
What
These
good
are our
could it be?
Xuanji school's
Could
first
it be to
generation
rid the world
disciples.
of violence and
We've
pacify
already
the
found
people
70 to 80
who would
people,
believe it,
and we've more or less
Huan
found
was
some clues
momentarily
about
at
the
a
remaining
loss for
ones.
words.
After
Some
a
of them
while,
are
he
far
said
away
with
in
a
the
wry
holy
smile,
domain.
It's
Just
fine if
summon them
cousin
here
doesn't
when the
want to
time
hear
comes.
it, but the
Some of
Wangchuan
them are
duo
in
clan
closed
isn't
door
easy to deal
cultivation
with, and probably
you
won't come
captured
out
their
in the
little
near
young
future.
master.
Lu
You're
Jing
talking
nodded
about that idiot?
repeatedly. There are only two
Arbor
disciples,
snorted and
there's
turned
no
to walk
news
toward
of the
them
ship's
now.
hold.
I've asked
Pausing
around,
halfway,
but no one can
Arbor
clearly
said
say where
coldly,
they went.
I've never met
Arbor
this person
glanced at the
before
two
and have no
expressionlessly.
interactions with him. Pretty efficient.
He insisted
It
on
was
seeking
indeed
death,
pretty good.
so I'm merely
The little
fulfilling his
stoic
wish.
tossed this fraudulent
Long
search
Huan
mission to
sighed.
Chen Qi and Lu
He
Zheng.
knew that he wouldn't be
She
able to
originally
persuade
didn't
his
expect
cousin to
them to
release
be
him
able
if
to
he
find
continued
many
speaking.
people. So he
After
could
all,
only
who
watch
the
as
hell
she
knew
entered
where
the
those
ship's
first
hold and
generation
ordered
disciples
someone
were
to
scattered
assemble
right now?
A moment
Besides,
later, it had been
Arbor
so
left
many
behind
years.
more than half
Perhaps
of the
a portion
soldiers
of the
and had
elders had
Huan He and
already
the others
ascended
stay on
to
the ship and
immortality.
await orders.
Who knew?
Meanwhile,
To tell the truth,
Duan
it was
Yu,
simply like
Mingyasi,
finding a needle
and the
in a
others led
haystack
tens
and a
of
fantasy
thousands
to
of
rely
soldiers
on
and
those
disembarked from the
unreliable
ship
nameplates
given
given
by
by
senior
senior fishing
village.
village. All of them. It was noon,
However,
and the sky
Arbor
was very
didn't
bright.
expect that Chen Qi
The
and Lu
half-round
Zhang
gold
would
and
make
sun
such great
emitted a
progress in
dazzling
such a short
radiance
time
as
with
it
this
landed on the
unreliable
surface of
lousy
the sea,
mission.
emitting specks
Greetings,
of starlight.
second generation sect
Arbor
master.
landed on the beach
The
adjacent
voices
to
of
the
the
20-something
something
Xuanji
Xuanji
school
The
disciples
sand
shook
here
the
was
heavens,
very coarse
and
and
everyone
spread out
appeared
like
very
rubble under their
excited.
feet.
It would be
Not
even
only was it
better if
hard to
these
step
fools
on,
could
but
remove
it was
the words
also
second
uneven.
generation
If
sect
she hadn't
master
purposely
from their
worn a
titles.
pair of thick soled
The
shoes,
stoic
her
looked at
feet
them
would definitely
expressionlessly.
hurt.
Her heart
Qi Xian
completely
Xian
kicked the sand under her feet and
second
looked around in
generation sect
confusion.
master.
Why is
A
it so
middle-aged
quiet?
man strode
Could it be
forward
that
and
no
rubbed
one
his
lives in
hands,
this fishing
his tone
village?
extremely emotional.
Everyone be careful.
It's really been hard
Air
on you
rung
these past
loudly
few
reminded
years
the
to
second
kill
generation
heavenly
sect
fate
squad
master.
members behind him.
Arbor said indifferently,
Today's operation
it
has a
hasn't
time
been hard
limit
on
of
me.
2 hours.
When that
Do your
middle-aged
best
man
to loot
heard
as
this,
many
the
resources
rims
as
of his
possible
eyes
and
turned
clean
red
up the remaining
dramatically.
wandering zombies
With a
in the
rueful
village.
expression,
He
if
said
you
to the
discover
little
traces
stoic,
of medicine
how
man
can it
bombs,
not be bitter?
do not act on
Just
your
thinking
own.
about it tells
You
me
must
that you've been
immediately
living in
report
poverty
to
these
us and
past
let us
few
know
years.
before making a decision.
After all, you have to support
If there are
the
no
entire Xuanji
anomalies,
school by
everyone
yourself.
will gather here in
For
2
so many
hours and
years,
count the
you have been
spoils.
working hard
As
for the
usual,
revival
the
of our
top
Xuanji
100
school.
teams will receive
That's
additional
right,
rewards.
that's right. The
Yes.
second sect leader is
100
really noble.
teams, 100
He didn't
people
even
per
tell
team.
us about his
After
troubles.
so many days of cooperative training on the deserted
As
island,
expected of our
the killing
second
Tianyun
leader,
battle team had already
Arbor,
found the key
everyone,
to the operation.
do you have any misunderstandings
as soon as Crown Prince
about
Rome
me?
gave the order,
Lord
they
Xiao
quickly
has only
moved.
taken over the
The
Xuanji
captains
sect
of
for a
each
short
team led
period
their
of
own
time.
team members
Over
and
the
quickly
past few
picked a
days,
direction.
I've only
Carefully
chosen a
searching the
location for the
village.
Xuanji sect
Arbor
and
raised his
erected the
head and
mountain
looked at
gate
the
of the
signboard
Xuanji
of the
sect.
fishing village that
Other
was
than
hanging
that,
not
wasn't
far
she
away.
completely a
He
hands-off
frowned
boss?
slightly.
At this moment,
Jojo
Huang He
walked
walked
up
up
and
and nodded
take a
his
look
head
too.
in praise.
Qi Xian,
He had a
fatty,
deeply
and the
moved
rest were already
expression on
itching
his
to
face.
go in and take action.
You guys are absolutely
Arbor glanced
right.
at them and
Our
nodded.
Xiao Xiao is a
I
noble
feel that this
character
place,
and
there was an
unquestionable
indescribable
integrity.
feeling.
She is the
The
role
chirping
model
of
of
insects
the world.
and the chirping of
Huang
birds
He
seemed to be
spoke
very
without
normal.
end.
However,
Arbor
she had a
wanted
very
to cover
bad
his
feeling.
face with his hand.
It was as if danger was
Back
lying
then,
dormant
when I
in
met
front
her
of her
before we
eyes,
even met,
but she was very
Jojo was
confused as she
high-spirited and
approached this
vigorous.
danger step by
She
step.
disregarded the
Yet she
danger
still
to
did
her
not
life
know
and
what the
lured away
danger
a
was.
high-level spirit beast
Jojo,
for
what's
us,
wrong?
leading away a
Duan, you
large
couldn't
beast
help
tied.
but turn to ask
Sigh,
softly
I can't
when he
bear
saw
to
her
look back on the
unwell
past.
expression.
Back
Arbor
then,
glanced at
Jojo
him
was
and
very
reflexively
different from others.
stroked his chest.
Big sis, he
Can
let
you
out
not
a
talk
long
about
sigh.
how you met back then?
I don't know, it doesn't feel good. As soon as he arrived here, he felt like his chest was being crushed
Chapter
by a huge rock.
4586.
You might not believe it. Back when they were training in the Lava Mountain Range, didn't they attract the beast tied to trick people?
Chapter
After that, the
4608.
little fat squirrel
That
took
huge
advantage
rock
of every
pressed down on her
opportunity to
chest,
clean up the
making
battlefield,
her feel an
not even
inexplicable
leaving
sense
behind
of
a single
discomfort.
spirit beast
Arbor
tooth
knew
for
this
them.
feeling very
The
well.
words noble
In her
character
previous
and
life,
unquestionable
whenever danger
integrity
came, she would
truly
always have a
unsuitable for
premonition.
this Lord Xiao.
Just like the current
Wang, he was
situation.
still rambling on.
Qi
The
Xuanxuan's
more
expression
Qin
was
Shi,
solemn,
Lu Zhang, and
as
the
if
other
she was
Xuanji
facing a
sect
great
disciples
enemy.
listened.
The
she
more
crossed
moved
her
they
arms
were.
in front of her
They
and
completely
looked around
didn't notice that
cautiously.
Duan Yu,
Jojo,
are
and
we
the
still
others
going
were
in?
twitching their mouths.
Everyone looked at
The
her
more
and could not
serious
help but
Jojo
twitch
appeared
their
on the
mouths.
surface.
She
The
seemed
more
to
his
have a
heart
mysterious
crumbled.
confidence in
According
Jojo.
to their understanding
Once
of this
Jojo
little
said
thing,
that he sensed
she simply
danger,
wouldn't
she
be
would
so
immediately
kind-hearted
believe
as to
him and
lure
put on
away
a
the
serious
beast's hide or
expression,
whatever,
as if a
Perhaps
lion would
this
jump
little
in front
fellow
of
was
them.
using the beast
Cough,
hide to
cough,
trick
shin,
people.
shin.
Judging
Little
from
Fatty
her
pulled his
serious
wife's
expression,
hand back
she probably
embarrassedly.
wanted to slap
What?
Huang He to death and
She
yell at her
Xuan's
to
face
shut up.
remained
While
guarded.
she was at it, she glanced
Shut
at the
up,
crowd
Huang
and
He.
harumphed.
Don't
Don't
make
be so
wild guesses
paranoid.
about this, Lord Xiao.
According to my understanding
You
of
freaking
Jojo,
constructed
what
a
she said
lofty
might
and
not
imposing
be
image
groundless.
of me in your heart.
Jojo's
But in
intuition
reality,
was so
that's not the
accurate
case
that
at
it
all.
made people's hair stand
Moreover,
on
she
end.
remembered that she
In
seemed
short,
to have
they had to be
explained the
alert
lava
at all
mountain
times
range
in case
incident
of an
to Huang He.
emergency.
Let's go in and take a
very
look.
Huang He was
The
even more
100
moved.
teams to kill the
She
heavenly
held her
fate had
hand and
already
wished for
entered,
nothing more
so
than
it
to
was
burst
naturally
into tears and
impossible
kept
for
praising
Xiaomu
her
to
for
stay
her
outside
kindness.
with her people
She
and
kept
wait for
insisting
news.
that it was Jojo
She was
who
never the
saved
kind
them
of
and was
person
their
who would
great
let her
benefactor,
comrades
and
fight
so on.
alone.
Seeing that she couldn't
Rong Qing
communicate
sent
with
a
this
message
fellow,
to the teams.
Arbor simply
Tell
didn't
them
mention
not
it
to
in the
move
end.
when they encounter
She
something
didn't
they
expect
cannot
this fellow to
identify.
bring up this
Send a
hilarious
message to
incident
us.
again today.
Crown Prince
She
Rong
already
nodded.
told her that the
As he
truth
walked,
wasn't so.
he ordered a few of
This
his
fellow was
bodyguards
living
to
in a
send
dream.
messages to the small
Enough.
teams that were going to
Arbor
kill the
pulled a
Heavenly
long
Faith
face
organization.
and quickly interrupted
The
Huang
group
He's
entered the
unceasing
seaside
praises.
fishing village.
Huang He
They
came
looked
at the
around
right
and
time.
saw that the village
How
was
many
not
people
small.
from the Heavenly
There
Pill
were
Guild
brick
did you
houses
bring
on
this
both
time?
sides, and at a glance,
Those who can
there
come
were
are
more
all
than
here.
100 stone houses.
Huang He immediately
Some of the
changed
houses
her
even
attitude
had
and
fish
restrained
drying
her
in front of
smile
their
when
doors.
they talked about serious
However,
matters.
it seemed that it had been
Wang
a while,
Yin,
and the
Gadaping,
fish
and
and
Little
Long
Chow
dried
are all
up.
here.
Arbor
There
and
are
her
also
men
several
walked slowly
slowly
into the village
and
waiting
followed
for
Jojo's
Jojo's
instructions
instructions
at any time.
Could it be that Qi
Arbor nodded in
Shenxian's overly
satisfaction.
suspicious and
This
vigilant
time, we
expression
need to
had
create a
affected
batch
them?
of nutritious
Everyone
liquid
felt a
called the
chill run down their
Firecracker
spine
dragon
suddenly.
A
I will
faint
provide
sound
the
came from
formula
the
and
left,
guiding
as
herbs
if a
when the
string
time
that had been
comes.
stretched taut
You just
was
need to
suddenly
make
cut
as
in
many
half.
as you can.
Ali abruptly
No
jumped
problem.
up as if he had been
Fairy Yellow
electrocuted
Crane
and
let
let
out
out
a
a
cry of
said,
alarm.
"We can
The
start
little
refining
stoic
pills
kicked his
right
calf
away."
without another word
Arbor
and shouted
coughed
in a
lightly,
low voice,
grabbed Fairy
"What are
Yellow
you
Crane's
shouting
small
for?
hand and
Do you
patted
want to
it
draw
twice,
out all
saying,
the things
"Do I
hiding
look
in the
like
dark?
such an unreasonable person?
These people were really annoying.
You've just arrived on
Every
the
time
island
there
and
was
must
an
be tired
operation,
from the long
there would
journey.
always be some
How about
idiots who
this?
would shout and
Have
shout
a good
in the
rest
team
tonight
as if
and
they
come
had
see
never
me
seen the
tomorrow
world.
morning. It had been so
Let me
many years
demonstrate
since
the
the
refining
corpse
method
puppet had
of the
appeared in the
Jasper
world.
Sky Jade Dragon
She should
Band.
have understood
Yellow
everything
Crane
that she
Fairy
should have
was so
seen and
touched that
understood.
she held
Right?
Arbor's hands
If
and
he
shook
wanted
them
to survive
vigorously.
in this world,
Jojo,
shouldn't
you're
he be
so nice.
familiar with the
Are you
habits
going
of
to
the corpse
demonstrate to me
puppets?
again?
Ali's
Good,
face
good.
darkened. I knew this trip wouldn't be
You
in vain.
what? I
Arbor
love
glanced
watching
at
you
Ming
refine
Yas.
pills the most.
Keep your
Watching you
retarded brother
refine
in check.
pills is a kind of enjoyment.
ACI.
Why do I
several
suddenly feel
Earth-grade
like I've
alchemy
lost all
grandmasters
faith?
looked at Fairy
Brother.
Yellow Crane with speechless
Ali looked
faces.
at his elder brother
Yellow
with an
Crane was
aggrieved
good at
expression.
everything.
She
Ming
was
Yas
approachably
irritably, lively,
him.
and cheerful.
What were you
It was
shouting
just
for
that
just
sometimes
now?
her brain might not work
I
too
saw
well.
over there.
Everyone
Yes,
didn't know
yes,
whether
yes,
to
there was
laugh or
movement over
cry
there.
when they saw her like
Ali
this.
pointed at the
This
brick wall on
appearance
the
of
side.
meeting the second-generation sect master of the Xuanji sect was like a brainless fan. They didn't know what was going on. Arbor coughed and drew back his
Chapter
small hand
4609.
expressionlessly. Everyone
Patting
looked in
Yellow
the
Crane's
direction of his
shoulder.
finger and saw a skinny rat crawling out from behind the brick wall. It flapped its wings twice and then
Chapter
burrowed back into the
4587.
crevice. She
This
said
time,
earnestly, everyone turned their
refine
heads
well.
and looked at Ali
Practice
as if
makes
they were
perfect.
looking at an idiot.
As long as your pill
Ming
refinement
Yasi's handsome
speed and
face
success
was
rate
completely
increase,
black.
it will
and he
only be a
grumpily
matter of
shouted
time
at his
before you
younger
improve
brother,
your pill
"Don't
refinement
be alarmed
skills."
if it's nothing.
Yes, look carefully
Huang He
first.
quickly cupped his
This
hand.
was simply humiliating
Everyone
to death.
They felt that
His
Huang He,
dignified
this
younger
child,
brother,
had been
Ming
tricked by
Province's
Jojo
crown
ever
prince,
since he was
was
born.
actually scared
After
into
Arbor
such a
finished
panic by a
talking
rat
with Huang
that didn't
He,
even
she
have
looked
two
at Chen
tails of
Qi
meat.
and Lu Zheng.
This was simply
I'm very
unbecoming.
happy that you guys
Ali
could
knew
come.
that he was in the wrong.
Everyone thought
so
at
he
the same
sullenly
time.
shrunk his
The
neck
little
and
sect
sneaked a peek
master's
at the
expression
expressionless
really
little
doesn't look
stoic.
happy. After this
You guys
stoic
can settle
face
down
entered
on the
this
island
place,
for the time being. He didn't know if it was his misconception. Do you still remember how But he felt that she was even colder than usual. Guang run away? That small face was belatedly realized that how when her gaze swept away at some point, he could practically feel the ice shards we can go find him within. Qin shook his neck, but he felt a chill invade his entire body. His teeth and her face was too frightening. I didn't expect to see how Guang in my life. She was like a moving jade he's been doing quite that only knew how to move forward. Hey, he really is an irresponsible guy. Another person said sarcastically. Everyone stealthily peeked at the silent little stoic and silently felt a gust of gloomy wind. The little stoic's mood is definitely not good right now. Could it be that seniors don't provoke her no matter what lest they become the next cannon fodder after all? Jojo loved to listen to everyone's advancing speed slightly increased. Was immediately after entering the village, they followed the dirt path forward. You guys? After what special matters do you have with Senior Hao Guang? Several forts appeared in front of his hands at her. How does the group have a deep grudge with the little crown princess? Second master, let's talk later. Rong Qing looked down at the jade messenger talisman. Xiao Mu became even more curious when she saw him run off with his men after saying there's also what he wanted to say. Spacious farm she took out a small butterfly and flicked her fingers. Split up and moved out. Follow them and take a look. Rong Qing pointed at a group of people that had circled out from behind the brick house. Senior Hao Guang was a great help to her. There are 10 groups left here to search from house to house. She was still waiting for him to refine the other groups are advancing branches towards the forest and
Huang
farm
He
behind.
and the others can refine
That
many
area
pills
is
for
a bit
killing the
spacious,
heavenly seer
and
now
it
that
said
they're
that the
here.
farm is quite
Duan Yu
large.
nodded and said,
Then let's go to the
dozen or
forest
so
and take a look.
pharmacists we've gathered
Arbor
will
said
probably arrive
indifferently
in
as he
2 days.
glanced at the stone house
At that
behind
time,
him.
the speed of
There were
refining
so many
jewel
houses
Sky
here.
Jade Dragon pills
10
should be
teams
much
should have
faster.
enough people to stay behind
When
and
will the
search.
people from the
It was
underworld
mainly
region
because she
arrive?
had a feeling that
Arbor's
something was
face
going to
tightened,
happen in this
and he
fishing
waved
village.
to a disciple
Just
of the
as everyone
Tianyun
was
battle
heading into
squad
the
beside
forest,
him.
they suddenly
back
heard
and
a
ask that
sharp
whistle.
whistle. I want
Hearing
an
this
accurate
voice,
reply.
everyone couldn't
Yes.
help but tense up.
Consuming the Jasper
whistle was
Heaven's Ear
ear-piercing,
Dragon pill
but it
would
was
definitely
definitely
allow their
sobering.
strength to rise
When
by a
Arbor
level in a
heard
short
it, his
period of
face
time.
immediately
The
changed.
most important thing was that
How is it?
after consuming the
Duan
Jewel
Yu
Heaven's
noticed
Ear
her
Dragon
abnormal
pill,
expression
it
and
did not
hastily
end right
asked,
away after upgrading.
Did this sound injure your
Its little
divine
bit of medicinal
senses?
power could
Arbor
only be
shook his
used in the
head.
body for 1 to
I'm
3
fine.
months.
However,
in the future,
long
when
Shang
he
Yun,
cultivated,
who was
he
standing
could
at the
clearly
side,
feel that his
couldn't help
absorption
but
speed
sway.
had increased.
A trace
his
of
meridians
blood
had
trickled
widened
down
and
from
so
the
on.
corner of her
It was a
lips,
feeling that
but she
could not
didn't
be
even
described
notice
in
it.
words.
Shield
Getting
your own
twice the
conscience.
result with half the
Duan
effort
Yu
was
was naturally
an
grateful.
extremely good thing.
This whistle is
While
harmful.
they were talking,
Arbor was very
guard
familiar with
ran
this
over
whistle
and saluted.
He had heard it
Reporting to
more
your
than once
Majesty,
when he entered
a
the
few
underground
commoners have
village.
been fished up from the
There's an
northwestern
ambush
shore.
here.
Arbor
They seem to
finally
still be
realized
breathing.
what he was panicking
Duan Yu
about.
turned to glance at
Activate
Arbor.
the defensive barrier.
I'll go take a look.
As it turned out,
Arbor
it was the
followed
people
him.
of the Providence
Let's go
Empire
together.
who had planted the
Their
human
deserted
bombs.
island,
They
which
had
neighbored the
predicted that
sacred
they would
land
come
of the
to
snowy
eliminate the
ridge,
human bombs
was covered
inside
in
the
snow
village.
all year round
Hence,
and
they
was
set up an
uninhabited.
ambush here from the start.
Suddenly, several people without any cultivation drifted over from the sea. Don't you think it's strange? Not being able to tell was the strangest thing. Under
Chapter
the Sangzhou
46
Guard's
10.
lead, the group
This familiar
arrived at the
move
northwestern
reminded
shore
Arbor
of someone.
Sure enough,
They saw several
This woman
upright
had only
figures
been
lying on
quiet
the
for a
snowy
few
ground,
days,
and she was already scheming against her again? She wanted to attack
Chapter
her and set up
45
layers of
88.
ambushes just to bait
Several
her.
Tsang Province
What a good
guards
plan.
who were patrolling the
Now that they
northwest
had shed
shore
all
all turned their
pretense of
heads and
cordiality,
respectfully bowed
Arbor
to
didn't
them.
care what this
Duan
woman
Yu
would
waved
do,
his hand,
and that
indicating
woman
that
didn't
they
seem
didn't
to
need
want
to
to continue
ceremony,
ceremony, and
she
strode
openly
forward.
bared her fangs,
Arbor,
revealing
Wu
her
Xingqian,
ferocious
and
face.
the others also followed.
She was like a rat
their
hiding
gazes
in a smelly
seemingly
ditch,
landing on the
running
commoners
out from
by the
time
shore.
to time and squeaking
They
at
saw
people.
that those people were
Seeing
all
that the
wearing
situation
coarse
wasn't
hemp
right,
garments,
she
their
hurriedly
complexions
shrunk back into the
emaciated,
ditch,
and their bodies
This made
emaciated.
Arbor very unhappy.
They had soaked in the
By now,
seawater for
Xiao
too
Mu was
long,
completely
so their bodies
aware
were
of
blue
what this
from the
woman
cold,
coveted from
and
her.
their lips were also
The
a bit purple.
10,000-year-old mermaid
Arbor
Pearl
glanced
really
at
made
them
people
before
crazy.
taking out a small
She
packet
didn't know
of
if this
medicinal
cunning
powder
woman
from
had
his
gotten the
sleeve and
information
handing it
from
to
her
her
mother
mother
Long
guard
Chuyun,
beside him, but she really
boil
wanted
it
to
in
steal
warm
it all
water
these
and
years.
feed each of them a
A
mouthful.
cold glint flashed
A packet
across
of
Arbor's
dispelling
eyes
cold
when she
powder
thought
was
of this.
enough to recover
This
these
hateful
people's
woman
chilled
was
bodies.
slippery by nature,
However,
and
this
always
kind of
changed
recovery
places
only
after a
treated the
battle.
symptoms and
She
not the
couldn't
root
catch her
cause.
people.
These people
Arbor
looked
thought
like
that
this
this
woman
woman
should
should
be on
so
the
they
sea
couldn't
right
recover
now
in
and
a
shouldn't
day.
be too far
Now
away
they
from
could
her.
only wake them up
Thus,
for the
she
time
could
being
adjust her
before
plans
asking
at
them
any
what was
time.
going on.
Fight.
A moment later,
Little Fatty
those
carried
people
his
in double-headed
slowly
hammer
regained
and rushed
consciousness
forward under the effects of the
exchanging
dispelling
glances
cold
with
powder.
a zombie that was
When they
pouncing
clearly
at him.
saw Arbor,
Little
Duan
Fatty's
Yu's
eyes
eyes
were
were
sharp
standing
and his
in front
hands
of
were
them.
quick.
The commoners,
With
with
a
a swing of
muddle-headed
his hammer,
from soaking
he
in the
chopped off the
seawater,
corpse puppet's
hastily
head on the
knelt and
spot.
begged for mercy,
The group of
repeatedly
people behind
shouting,
him hurriedly
"No,
dodged,
don't, sirs, don't,
avoiding
don't
the
kill
bone
us,
fragments
don't."
that the corpse
Arbor's
puppet
gaze
shot out in
landed
all
on a young
directions.
man with a very
Qi
shallow
Xianxian
complexion
hurriedly
and
took out a
sunken
piece
eye
of cloth to
sockets.
cover her face
Tell
and
us,
muttered,
where did you come from?
"So fucking disgusting.
Why did you drift to our snowy
If I
island?
hadn't dodged in time,
That man
I would have
trembled
eaten a
non-stop
mouthful
and
of
zombie
zombie out in
mud.
trepidation as he begged for mercy."
Miss
Qi Xianxian couldn't help but shudder.
We are
She
villagers from
instantly
a
felt
small
a trace
fishing
of
village
bitterness
outside
between
the
her
river
nose and the depths of her throat. Because the
Seacombe
harvest
fully
this
drew
year
her
was
long
poor,
sword from her
ghostly
conscience
monsters
and chopped
started
off a
appearing in
zombie's
the hand that
village.
was leaning
They
against the
stood
wall.
stiffly, jumped,
She
and
turned
bit
to glance
people.
at Qi Xianxian
As a result,
and curled her
those who
lips.
could run all ran out.
What a spoiled temper.
As for the remaining
Who are you
people, they
calling
were about to
spoiled?
starve to death.
A purple light
so they had no
flashed in
choice
Qi
but to follow
Xuanchuan's
the
hand,
fireworm
and a
troop
bolt
out
of
to
lightning
boats.
shot out. We didn't
In
do
an
anything
instant,
bad.
the corpse
We really
puppets
didn't do
in front of
anything
her were
bad.
chopped into
The
pieces.
man said with tears in his
Seacombe Fulling's
eyes,
eyes
"We
lit
were
up as she
originally
stared at the
ordinary
sword in Xishuang's hand. But because our lives were hard and we couldn't survive anymore, we followed others to run zombie in front of her. We wanted to earn a few spirit coins so that we could exchange them for food. Nod proudly. Jojo blinked. That's true. What's the fireworm sideways at Seacombe? I heard that they are the most famous pirate team in the region of the Forgotten River. What bet? They always like to take advantage of the time when the sky is about to turn dark to come out with their pirate ships to rob and intercept the nearby merchant ships. Your artifact is much more powerful than mine. He was extremely savage. Isn't this unfair to me? Duan Yu said in a low voice. Sword. However, because they intercepted the morning sunlight pavilions, how many zombies are gathered here? The divine province. Will they kill us until our hands go soft? Once by the morning sunlight was killing zombies and their vitality seemed to be greatly damaged. His gaze shifted, paused, and pointed to the ground. I didn't expect them to move out again after a few days of peace. These things are crawling out from underground. We have to find the shivering people with an indifferent expression. We have to destroy that passageway. Since you joined the pirate group, otherwise, why did you end up in the sea? These monsters would continue to crawl out from the ground like an terrifying incident. Seacombe disliked us for being a hindrance and didn't do our jobs well, so he threw us into the sea to feed the fish. Then you guys are really amazing. Arbor looked at them meaningfully.
Chapter 46:11.
The sea is densely filled with zombie fish,
really didn't want
yet
to
you
agree
normal
to this
people could
fellow's
actually
request,
drift here unscathed
because she
and
felt
just happened
that
to
this guy was
encounter
the
us.
same as Chow Mu.
Jojo. He had dug a
Duan
hole
Yu's
and was
entire
probably
body
waiting for
suddenly
her to
tensed,
jump
as
into
if he
it.
sensed an
Was
extreme
she that
danger,
stupid?
and he
How
pulled
could she
Arbor
not
to his
see
side.
the mischievous intent lingering in this fellow's eyes?
Sikong Fuling was just
Chapter
about to shake her head when she
45:89.
saw Chi
At the same
Xuanxuan's
time,
disdainful
that young
gaze.
man with a sallow
For a moment,
complexion and
Lady
sunken eye
Sikong's
sockets
blood
suddenly
rushed to her
shuddered
head
and abruptly
She
exploded.
originally wanted to
The loud
refuse,
boom was
but the
accompanied
words
by a
that came out of her
pungent and
mouth
unpleasant
became,
smell.
"Do you think I'm
The air
afraid
was
of you?
instantly filled
Let's
with
compete."
a putrid stench,
All
and
right.
the patter of
Lady
yellow powder
Sikong, let's
drifted
begin
toward
then.
everyone like
We'll
a
use the
continuous
corpse
drizzle.
puppets head as proof.
Duan Yu flicked his sleeve
Sikong
to
Fuling
disperse
said
the
with a cold
cyclone in front of
expression.
him and pulled
Why
the little
aren't you
stoic
putting away
behind
your
him before
artifact?
coldly gazing
We agreed
over.
just now that
They
you
dodged
can't use
in
this
time,
artifact.
and their movements were extremely
I know,
swift.
I know.
By the
Qi
time
Xianxuan
Duan Yu
nodded
spoke,
and kept
Ma
the purple
Jichen,
light
Mi Yin,
artifact
and
sword
Feng
back into
Changqing
her
had already
conscience.
set up a defensive
She said
barrier.
with a serious
They
expression,
finally managed
I
to
said I
dodge
won't
the
use
attack
the
without
purple light,
mishap
so I
and kept the
naturally
drifting
won't
yellow
use it.
powder 3
Don't
feet
worry,
away.
Lady Sikong.
Arbor poked his head out
Qi
from behind
Xianxuan
Duan
am
Yu and
upright and
expressionlessly
definitely
raised
won't
his
cheat you.
hand. The
Sikong
blue
Fuling's
spiritual
small
cleansing
body
fire
trembled
burned over,
inexplicably,
but everyone
She
clearly
had a
saw
feeling
that
that
the
she had
yellow
already
powder
been
continued
cheated
to
by Qi
multiply under
Xianxuan.
the blue spiritual
See you
cleansing
later.
fire.
I'm going to
There
kill
were
the
still
corpse
hundreds
puppets.
to thousands of
Qi
floating yellow
Xianxuan
powder
waved at her and
floating in the
skipped
air,
ahead,
and they could be
Sikong
clearly
Fuling
seen
thought
with the
that
naked
something
eye.
was wrong.
Xiao Mu
Now
made
that
a
the
prompt
situation
decision
was
and took out
chaotic,
the realm of
who knew if this
misfortune.
Qi Xianxuan
With a
would
casual
secretly
swipe
use
of
that
her hand,
artifact
she
after leaving
absorbed
her
all of
sight?
the yellow powder
The power
inside.
of the artifact
Only
could
then
never
did
be
everyone heave a
underestimated.
sigh of relief.
She had to
But
follow
the
Qi
expression on
Xianxuan
their
all the way.
faces was not relaxed
Sikong
at all.
Fuling's speed wasn't
8
slow as
layers
she
of the
followed
blue
Qi
spiritual
Xianxuan with
cleansing
flying
fire
steps.
actually can't
Arbor
extinguish these yellow
expressionlessly
particles.
chopped the
Duan
disgusting
Yu said
corpse
gravely,
puppet that was covered
"We
in
have
mucus.
no idea what these
She
things
glanced
are."
sideways and
The
saw
venerable
Qi
peach
Xianxuan
blossom
happily
immortal
running past
nodded.
her. It looks like the heavenly fortune has come up with a new trick
killing
again.
the corpse puppets
Everyone
that
looked
surged in
over
front
and
of her
saw
as
that
she
the
shouted,
people they fished
"Qi
up from the sea
Xianxuan,
were
where are
all
you going?
smashed to pieces
I've
and
already
couldn't be
killed
more
18
dead."
corpse puppets.
Arbor's expression
You'll
was
lose
grave,
if you keep running
and a
around
trace
like
of
this.
chilliness hung on his face.
Qi
He
Xianxuan
flicked
summoned
out
a
the heart of
frying pan
misfortune,
from her
and
conscience
that
with a
pitch
flash
black
of
bead
light.
with an inky
Arbor
luster
looked at
slowly
the thing in
rose
her
up.
eyes and his
It
face
emitted a
darkened.
myriad of black lights
Qi
that
Xianxuan,
slowly condensed
don't
into
use
a
the
black
guy who
light
cooks to
screen in
shoot
the air.
zombies.
The
Bang.
light screen rippled,
Qi
and the
Xianxuan
myriad
didn't
of
say a
black
word
lights
as she
gently
smashed the
undulated
corpse
like
puppet's
water
head
ripples.
with the wok.
The scene
Arbor,
in the realm of
Mata couldn't
misfortune
help
was
but
like an
scream,
unfurled
"Damn
painting that
Xianxuan,
slowly
are you
flowed
crazy?"
down.
After
Shadows
being
appeared
slapped
on
by
the
you
black
like
light
that,
screen,
do you think I'll
moving
still dare to
slowly
cook an
along
egg
with the
next
running
time?
of the human figures.
Cut the crap.
Everyone looked over.
Qi Xianxuan
On the
smashed
screen,
a corpse
several
puppet to death
disciples
with
of
her
the
wok.
City of Shadows were
She was in
running
the middle
madly
of
on a
smashing
vast
it to death
expanse
when
of
she
land.
heard Mata's clamor.
Every one of them was covered
She threw
in
him a
dirt and
cold
dirt,
glance with
and
her
their
tiger
bodies were
head.
covered in wounds.
Fucking boiled
Their
eggs.
complexions were
I'll cook you
sallow
like
and
an egg.
emaciated,
Qi
and they were in a
Xianxuan poured the
sorry
wok
state.
down and
It
easily
was
dealt
obvious
with a
that
few
he had
corpse
been tortured
puppets.
to death in the
Sikong
realm of
Fuling,
misfortune
who had
and was on the
swiftly caught
verge
up,
of death.
stared at the
Speaking
frying
of
pan in
which,
Qi
there were
Xuanxuan's
about
hand
20
and
to
finally
30
found
City
her
of
voice.
Shadows disciples who
This
were captured
frying
and
pan
sent to the heart of
is?
misfortune. Were her
However,
eyes playing
after
tricks
this
on her?
period of tempering,
Judging from
the
the
realm of
material of the
misfortune
frying
had
pan and the
completely
faint
shattered
glow
their
it was
hopes in
emitting,
life.
why did
The
she feel
remaining
like it was
few
a
should be
divine
the
tool?
strongest disciples
You're
in the
talking
City of
about this
Shadows.
frying pan? They had lived
Qi
the
Xianxuan
longest and
looked
fought
back
for
and
their
forth at
lives
the
the frying
longest.
pan in her hand and
However,
said happily,
after being
I
tempered
heard
by
Jojo
thousands
say
of
that
killings
this
in the
this
realm
is
of
what
misfortune,
no
Chen-
matter how strong a
Chen
person's
Kuan
will
she
was,
frowned and
their
thought for a
willpower
while,
would be almost
only to hear
completely
Arbor
worn out.
calmly interject.
Arbor remained
It's a
silent
divine
as he
tool.
stared at the City of
All right,
Shadows
this frying
disciples
pan
who were
is a
forced to
divine
run
tool.
forward by the dark yellow particles. Hand over a strand of your life soul and submit to me. A City of Shadows disciple looked up at the
Chapter
sky like a
46:12.
startled bird. Qi
Who are you?
Xianxuan flattened the
The
head of a
remaining
zombie in
5
front of
City
her
of
and
Shadows
chuckled.
disciples
As
didn't waste
expected,
any
it's
words
very
and directly
useful.
handed over a
Sikong
strand of their
Fuling
life
speechlessly
souls.
looked up at the
They
sky.
gritted their teeth
If
and
she still
continued
didn't
running
realize
forward.
that she had been tricked
Arbor
by the
raised
little
her
girl in
hand,
front of her
and
at
the
this
5
point,
strands of
then
life
she would
souls
truly be
immediately flew into her palm. How many divine weapons did this fellow have on her? How could she break the rules and cheat like this?
4590.
She said she wasn't going to use that purple sword,
heard a painful
but in the
scream,
end she casually
and they
pulled out a
immediately
frying
turned
pan
back
from
to
her
look with
pocket,
trepidation.
and that was a great
They saw
divine
that a
weapon.
yellow powder had
Unfortunately
people were
landed on
these?
the left cheek
Since
of the
when did
companion who
divine
had asked the
artifacts
question
become
earlier.
cabbages on the
Within
roadside
a few
stalls?
minutes, his face
Could they
started
just
to
grab a
fester
bunch
with
of them
pus.
casually?
Streams
Arbor
of putrid
silently
pus
glanced
flowed down
at
his
Seacombe
face,
Fulling's expression
bubbling
and
and
could
bubbling
only
as they
mourn
flowed
for her
down
in
in
his
his
terrifying manner.
To be honest,
The
when
five
he saw
city
Xian
enchantress
Shadow's disciples
Seacombe
were so
Fulling,
frightened
Sir
that their
Jojo
limbs
was still a
stiffened.
bit amused.
But soon,
They
they discovered that a
transparent
transparent
barrier had been erected around them.
repeatedly chopped
He
at the
didn't know when
zombies'
it was
heads with the
erected
frying
around his
pan.
body.
A
but it
round
blocked
little
all
white
the
squirrel
powdery
was
yellow
currently
particles
sweeping
outside
through
of
the
his
battlefield.
The
Leaping
five
back
people's
and forth
pupils
around
contracted
everyone
as
they
they
watched the fine
Its furry
sand-like
little
yellow
arms
powder
were wrapped
slowly
in a
spin
floral
upwards
cloth.
in the air as
It
though it
picked
was
up the
lifted by a
zombie
large
crystal cores on
invisible
the ground
palm.
and casually
It drew
wiped
an
them
arc
with a
in the
rag
air
before
and
tossing
spiraled
them into the
circles,
floral cloth
forming
bag.
a whirlwind that
Its
didn't
movements
miss
were
a single
quite adept
particle
and
as
very
it swung
swift,
gently
so
in
no
the
one
air.
noticed it at first.
Just like a sentient
Everyone was
living
fighting
creature,
with
they
all
were
their
easily
might against
controlled
the
by
zombies,
someone.
so they didn't
The
think to
five
collect
people
those
looked at each
zombie
other in
crystal
dismay
cores of
before
various
looking at their
colors
companion
scattered on
who
the
was
ground.
blocked outside
By
the
the time
transparent
someone wanted
barrier
to
and
collect
the
the
hand he
crystal
extended
cores,
to them for
they
help.
discovered that the
Then,
crystal
bit by
cores were
bit,
long
like
gone.
sand flowing falling down,
a little
his
fat
body
squirrel
turned into
was
puspit
wagging
by
its
bit.
8 furry tails.
The dark brown liquid
arched
seeped
around
into
their
the
feet
thick
and
soil
jumped up and
beneath
down.
their feet. Was very
The 5
agile.
people clearly
A
saw
ring
that
of
the
light
normal
silver
soil
high-level
color turned black in a few
cores
breaths.
had already
The
fallen
mutated
around
soil
Duan Yu
extended
and
all the way forward.
When the little fat
Duan
squirrel
Yu,
saw
he
them,
chin and
it eagerly
Arbor's
jumped
expressions
over and
changed at the
collected
same
all the
time,
crystal
and
cores
their
around
gazes
them.
turned grave.
Little Tai Sui
What the
couldn't
hell is
resist
this
rolling
thing?
its eyes.
Feng Zhangqing
You really
asked.
came from the same
I'm
path
guessing
as
that
your
it should be
master.
the medicine
The
men
fat
newly
squirrel
developed
turned
by
its
the
head
heavenly
and
glanced
glanced
at him with its beady black
Arbor's
eyes before
expression was
chirping
very
in protest.
unsightly as he
He
turned to
couldn't
Duan Yu and
resist
said,
covering his
"We
face.
need to inform this news
freaking
and let all
sacred
the
beast
city
had
lords
no
know
moral
about
integrity when it
The
acted
message
cute.
was passed
You
down
can
layer
speak
by
human
layer and the
language,
defense
alright?
work was done.
Yet you like to
These
pretend
medicine
to be a
men are
harmless
so
little
powerful.
animal.
If the
Chirp,
Heavenly
chirp.
Fate Dynasty
Arbor
uses
turned
them to
around
attack
and
cities and
chirped
plunder
at it.
lands,
The
wouldn't
little
they be
fat
invincible?
squirrel jumped quickly and
Feng
high,
Zhangfei
and in
couldn't
an
resist
instant,
exclaiming.
it was on Arbor's
Arbor
arms.
nodded gravely.
The fire spirit
If they
in
really
Arbor's
produce
hand
large
moved,
batches
and
of
the
these
blue
medicine
spiritual
men,
cleansing
it will
flame
indeed
killed
be
a little
troublesome.
zombie that was as tall
I
as a
don't think it's
5-year-old
possible to
child.
sell it in large
He
quantities.
coldly said,
Be
Duan Yu
careful.
glanced at her
These
placatingly.
little zombies will
If
hide
they
in the
really
big
had the
one's
power
stomachs
to
or
destroy
carry
the
them on their
city,
backs.
they could have used
They
it
might
when
jump
they
out and
attacked
attack
Joey
at any
City back
time.
then, right?
Oh, you
Arbor
scared me to
thought for a
death.
moment and
The
nodded.
peony fairy
Then
patted
spread
her
the news
chest and
first
cried.
and have them take precautions.
Everyone come over quickly.
Duan Yu said quietly,
We found the underground
don't be too
passage.
worried.
Little
On
Fatty
the other
shouted
hand,
from
the
outside
5
the
disciples
crowd.
of the city of
Everyone
shadows in the
quickly
realm of
gathered around
misfortune
him.
realized that the
Quick, use the
transparent
fire
barrier
spirit
around them
burn.
had been removed.
Let's see if they can climb out
He
of the sea of
immediately
fire.
knelt down uneasily
A member of the
and
killing
worriedly,
team hurriedly
bowing
roared
towards
and
and shot out a
southeast.
line of fire.
Thank you for
burning
saving
towards
my
the
life,
entrance of
Master.
the underground tunnel.
At this moment,
his
they
team
already
members
understood
understood
that
that
the
the
person
person who
together.
saved them was
The fire
definitely the
spirit
owner of
master
the realm
and
of
the team
misfortune.
immediately walked to the
With a
front
flip of
and
his
threw out
hand,
fire
he could
spirits,
summon clouds and
attacking
rain
the
with a flip of
underground
his
tunnel
hand.
together.
In the realm
At the
of
same
misfortune,
time,
that
Arbor
person was a
looked up with a
godlike
slight
existence.
frown.
He could
Duan Yu,
control
little
and
Tai Sui,
control everything in the realm of
Peach Blossom
misfortune.
Immortal were also
Arbor
looking
stored
up
the
at the
5
roof.
life spirits
From
into a
here,
soul-locking
one
ring
could
and
see the
into his
corner of a
consciousness.
white robe
She
fluttering
then
in the
said
wind.
to the 5 of them,
Clank.
train in
The
the realm
crisp
of
sound of the
misfortune for
zither
a while
flowed
longer.
down from the roof.
When you break
jolting
through to
everyone's
everyone's realm,
minds.
I will release you. She casually tossed a bottle of Jewel Sky Jade Dragon pills to the 5 of them and said aloofly, remember, don't
Chapter
touch those yellow
46:13.
medicinal powders. The little fat
Yes,
squirrel
master.
squatted on Arbor's shoulder and stomped its little paws, but she pressed it down with one hand. Chapter
Don't
4591.
Chirp, chirp, crack, crack.
The little fat squirrel
sound
shook
of the
its
heavy
8
whip
furry
kept
tails.
ringing out.
Master,
All the
Master,
onlookers
I've
on the
already
deck
recovered
were
my
silent
8
as
tails.
cicadas in
The
winter.
implication was,
No one dared to
I'm
speak.
already very
Mu
strong and
Xiao
can
Shu
properly
even
protect
rubbed the corner
Master.
of her clothes
However,
and stood beside
Arbor
Mu
still shook
Xiao
her
with her
head.
head lowered.
You're too
She
small.
was trembling so
Stay
much
here
that she could
properly.
barely stand.
We can resolve
Big
the
sister,
matters here.
big sister,
If it
she
weren't for
called
the
out
fact that she
pitifully.
wanted Chirp to
Her
come
voice
out and
was
pick
as
up
soft
scraps,
as a mosquito,
Arbor wouldn't
and
have
it was
let it
so
out.
broken that it
would be
revealed a
too late
sense of
for regrets
heartbreak.
if anything
It was
happened
as if
to it
she
in
was
this
really
kind of place where
heartbroken right
corpse
now.
poison was rampant.
Zhao Yi really wanted
She had
to
to
go up
properly
and gently
protect
hug
her
his
little
little
companion
junior
sister.
The
And
little
gently
fat
tell her
squirrel
not to
couldn't
be
help but
afraid.
blink.
However,
Even
there were
in
many
Master's
heavenly
eyes,
fate
the
sect
group of
disciples
cute little
standing
creatures
around
around
watching
her
them.
were very, very,
Zhao
very
Yi and
weak.
Gui Xuan could
No
only
matter
stay
how
where they
powerful
were
they
and
could
couldn't move
display
around
previously.
freely on the deck.
Once little Master
Big
labeled
sister,
them as
Mu
cute little
Xiao Shui said
creatures,
softly,
they would be
just
included
give
in
in
the
and beg
list
for
of
mercy.
protected species.
Mu Rochuan was
The
tied
little
to a
fat
wooden
squirrel
post
looked
at the
down
bow
at
of
its
the
furry
ship.
little body.
Because of the whipping,
Before it
her
could think
clothes
carefully,
were almost
a series
completely
of
torn.
rapid whistles
She
came
had
from the
already
air.
lost her
Arbor looked
cultivation
up
and
and
saw
saw
that the
the
white
white-clothed
energy
figure
to
had
defend
already
herself
leaped
like
down from
ordinary
the eaves.
cultivators. From afar,
At this
he
moment,
had the
the
air of a
whips
scholar
landed on her
and the
body
appearance
again
of a
and again,
distinguished
and
scholar,
each time they
but
landed,
up close
she was
he appeared
injured again and
extremely
again.
frightening.
After 50
Not only was
lashes,
his face full
Rochuan
of bumps
spat
and
out
hollows,
blood.
but
She
this
was a little
zither-playing
confused
corpse
and
puppet's
almost fainted.
relatively intact
Rochuan.
long hair had also been
Mu
shaved
Xiao
off by
finally
half
moved
after
from
two
the stool
battles
and stood up.
In fact,
Enough,
Arbor had
she said
recognized
angrily
that
to
person
Red,
at a
who was
glance when he
personally
was
holding
standing
the
on the
whip.
roof.
Stop.
It was mainly because this
Hall
person
Master
was too
Gong
eye-catching,
Rochuan already knows
and he
her
was the
mistake.
only
only zither playing and culture go like this puppet they had encountered recently. He was truly easy to recognize. The zither playing corpse puppet had returned and even gathered such a large group willing to personally take the punishment on behalf of your daughter. As expected, was silent it really was something that would say revenge for the smallest grievance. Couldn't help but sneer. She then turned to Duan Yu and shouted, "Mu isn't as protective of your daughter as I thought." After exchanging a glance with He Shurchin, the two of them dashed forward in the blink of an eye, is just an ordinary attacking at the zither playing corpse. How can she withstand 100 lashes from your elite disciple? On the other side, cracked the whip with a grin and turned to look from all the killing. Since you're so close to your daughter, why don't you take the punishment on behalf of your daughter and let Hallmaster Mu take the remaining 50 lashes, she called out. Mu Qingya's lips twitched with a fake smile. Fortunately, they had the foresight to bring 30,000 people from the heavenly fate battle group to encircle and annihilate them. Her tongue. Otherwise, his group would be besieged by the corpse such a heartless person. It was truly an eye-opener to see so many undead puppets hidden under dissatisfaction and anger in her heart. Arbor carried the little fat squirrel and kicked away the piles of white bones that were blocking the way. This time. He took a few steps forward and stared fixedly at Duan Yu and Hallmaster Gong and Vice Hallmaster Mei. Please give this Hallmaster face and spare her this once. Currently, the two of them had the upper hand understand by working together. Gong Song Fong playing corpse puppet since you've already joined us. You should abide by the rules of the organization. The powerful enemies you must obey the orders of your superiors. The more alarmed he became. Don't ever touch anything that you shouldn't do. It hadn't been many days since the zither playing corpse puppet first attacked them on the surface of the sea. Dared to make the decision and release the human medicated bomb without permission. It was as if it had eaten a quick-acting energy pill. Gong Song What the hell could cause a corpse puppet's level to soar so rapidly? Then she must take full responsibility for this matter. He suddenly felt a gust of strong wind above his head. The human medicated bomb and the others cried out in alarm that the organization has only successfully developed 10 of them. Chapter 46:14. But now she wasted 5 of them in one gust of wind, she even exposed our plan in advance. She narrowed her eyes, and according to the little crown princess's temperament, however, she will definitely take this matter seriously and make arrangements as soon as possible. It carried a gust of strong wind that was enough to raise a gale that we have such a trump card in our hands. Arbor stood steadily. What do you think they will do? In the corner of her plain clothes, expression was ugly as she turned to look at the silent claws were like an eagle's closed, and its body was as robust as a whip her again. Its neck was slender and its head was mutated. She bit the handkerchief in her hand and murmured, "One could tell that it was a four-winged harpy that had undergone special modifications." Turned around and smiled. It was incredibly ugly. Little girl. It was truly incredibly ugly. Patted the whip in her hand and tilted glancing at it. Look at Mu Xiaoxue felt her stomach turn sour. Why don't you do it instead? A nauseating feeling assaulted her. You two have such a deep sisterly relationship. Made her want to vomit uncontrollably. Take 2 lashes for your sister and looking at this 4-winged mutated harpy up close, frozen it was truly too disgusting. He gave a look to the heavenly facial features seemed to have been blended together. And those disciples stepped forward and mouth tried to grab Mu Xiaoxue's arm. At first glance, all of its facial features were present in front of her mother's chair, burrowing into her strange and ugly, making people loathe it. The little stoic activated her eggshells like an angry lioness almost she immediately shielded Mu Xiaoxue in her arms and slapped away the hands of the heavenly sound of metal colliding entered everyone's ears. Angrily, the 4-winged harpy's claws were as sturdy as cold iron, and they scratched a mark on the little stoic's defensive whip in her hand. At the same time, a mother-daughter relationship. The 4-winged harpy. I thought I was seeing things. Even though the harpy had a head of copper and arms to be so biased as its entire body was as thick as steel plates, to realize something as she quickly steadied its neck when it saw the water arrow at the disheveled flapped its wings and flew high into the sky. However, Mu Rochuan didn't open her eyes from beginning to end and arrived very quickly, and he appeared next to the little stoic in the blink of an eye. There wasn't a piece of unharmed flesh on her body, but she didn't utter a single word. Through the defensive barrier, he happened to see the little stoic raise her small hand and wink at him. Miss Mu, who released the human medicine stoic's hand. Of course, the boat with the current. Mu Qingya's voice suddenly glanced at it, and his handsome face immediately was trembling in her arms and said sternly, he withdrew his smile and flatly refused. Don't you know the relationship between Mu Rochuan and Arbor? Grabbing her wrist without a second word. The Mu family's house. In the blink of an eye, the zither playing corpse and tried to plot against her 3 feet into the air with that tattered zither. These things are all well-founded and can be investigated. An out-of-tune zither note abruptly sounded. And it carried strands of energy as it blasted towards Duanyu's direction. Lost all the little stoic raised her hand to push him and blinked at him while she's disabled. Hurry up and go. How could she not hate her? She then conveniently took a step back. This child's thoughts went astray for a moment. Flared up, and he turned around to learned about the underground hall's medicine man bombs. You're not allowed to mess around. Use them to destroy our block. One caught the zither playing corpse. Redcoat smiled and rubbed her palms together. Waves instantly surged. The story is really well made. Beautiful peach blossom eyes. That's enough, Hallmaster Mu. He said coldly. Now that the punishment is over. You can drag your playing daughter back after the punishment is over. Then she continued with the remaining 50 lashes and protect them. Mu Xiaoxue didn't dare to pretend anymore and didn't say a word from beginning to end. A rising silver white flame instantly burned along the zither playing corpse's withered arm. They watched as Mu Rochuan was taken down from the heavenly pillar squad after hearing the news had gathered together in an organized manner. They opened up a path from all directions and moved closer to the center. At this moment he suddenly heard an extremely strange and shrill wave. 4593. Everyone's heart tightened glanced at her in amusement and they subconsciously raised their heads to look at the source of the sound. Acting. They were greatly shocked by what they saw. I told you to stand out and take floating in the air with his back facing but you weren't willing. At this moment, can't we be a little more realistic? Was surrounded by a strange, she was so ugly, not at all like that stoic face. It was him who had let out this human face. Was really an honest little girl. If she liked someone, she liked them. His voice gave people goosebumps. If she didn't like someone, she couldn't be bothered to waste words with them. Forget about putting in the effort to act, she didn't even want to look at them. After you deceived her then, there really wasn't even the slightest possibility everyone of couldn't help shuddering when they saw this scene. Threw down the whip in her hand. That thing was currently completely surrounded by a silvery white flame and could only roll back and forth in the air, Sister,
looking
does
at
it
her.
normally unlucky?
Mu Xiaoxue
Sikong
sat at
fully
Mu
tightened her grip on the sword and her hands with a handkerchief
glanced
at her elder brother. Saw you, child.
Young Master Ding was looking in that direction with an
lovingly and turned to
indecipherable
instruct the
expression.
two maids.
His gaze
Clean
seemed to
up
be
Elvis's
fixated on that
wounds
zither-playing zombie,
Use the best
and he didn't
medicine
return
and
to
ask
his
me for
senses
more
for
if
a
you
long
run
time.
out.
At this
Yes,
moment,
Hall Master.
all the zombies present
Sister,
inexplicably
are you angry
quieted
at
down
Xiaoxue?
and didn't make a
Mu
single
Xiaoxue
sound.
stammered
But
with a
this
trembling
silence only
expression.
lasted for a few
Xiaoxue
seconds.
couldn't bear it and
After a
hurriedly
moment,
persuaded,
they let out
how can that
earth-shattering
be?
roars of
Eldest
anger,
Miss Mu
and one
was
after
little
another,
junior
they
sister's
charged
elder
forward
sister.
violently.
Naturally,
They
she will
attempted to
uphold her
disperse
elder
the
sister's
surrounding
image and
assassination
protect you.
teams and rush to Duan
But
Yu
sister,
and the other side.
you haven't even opened your eyes to
Restrain
look
them.
at Xiaoxue
A
since
team
just
leader
now.
commanded solemnly.
Mu Xiaoxue
Everyone
twisted the
don't
handkerchief in
scatter.
her hand and
Set
said
up
in
a
a small
formation.
voice,
Set up a
this
formation.
time, it's Xiaoxue who
Separate them
dragged sister
urgently.
down.
The assassination
won't be
teams
so
on the
rash in
side
the
had
future,
already
all right?
started moving long
Sister,
ago.
don't be angry
They
at
separated
Xiaoxue.
the zombies
All
wave
right,
by
Xue,
wave in a
your
well-trained
sister
manner
is also
and completely
tired.
trapped them in
Let's go
several
out first
shrunken
and let her have a
encirclements
good
before
rest.
exterminating them.
Seeing that Mu
Duan Yu
Roxuan
grabbed
had no
Arber's
intention
small
of speaking
arm and
from beginning to
dragged her
end,
to his
Mu
side.
Qingya also
Why are
felt
you messing
deeply
around
awkward
like
and
this?
couldn't continue this
Arber
one-man
couldn't
show.
resist rolling her
The mother
eyes.
and daughter pair
She
spoke
looked
a
at
few
the
more
handwriting
words
on her
carefully
small
and were
hand
about
and
to
thought,
turn and leave.
I wrote it for
only
nothing.
to hear Mu Roxuan's
She originally
hoarse voice
wanted to
drifting
act
over from the
secret,
bedside,
so she planned to
Mother,
secretly
your grace
inform
of giving
Duan
birth
Yu.
to me in
With
this life
Duan
I have
Yu's
already
intelligence,
repaid it.
he would definitely
Mu
be able
Qingya's
to
heart
discern her
skipped a
plan
beat
from the
and she
four
turned
words
around
she
to
wrote.
look.
But she
However,
didn't expect
Mu
this guy
Roxuan
to not only
turned her
reject her
face
flatly,
away,
but he
revealing
also
the ancient
caught her.
scar on the side
How
of her face that had
infuriating.
been soaked
Actually,
in blood.
this is a great
Perhaps
opportunity.
it was because of the heavy whip,
Arber persuaded
but the old
earnestly,
scar on his face
hey,
seemed
you
to
know
have
it
split
too.
open again.
If I take
Only
advantage
Mu
of the
Roxuan
situation
herself
to
knew that
infiltrate
any
the enemies
scars
on
on her
camp,
body were not
perhaps.
scars.
It's not to
Only
that
the one in
extent.
his heart was deep
Duan
and
Yu
ruthless,
glanced at her
so
and
heavy that he
interrupted,
couldn't breathe.
Don't think that you
The
can do
line
whatever you
dividing
want
the
just
crown
because
prince's
Emolian
closed door
went to
training.
cultivate. Today,
In any
I've
case, I
gathered
say
everyone
no.
here because I have an
Arber
urgent
glared at
mission
him.
for you.
Why are
Today
you like
we are
him?
going out to sea.
Tyrannical.
We will search
What
the
problem
nearest
could there
fishing
be?
villages along
Since
the
the other
coast.
party set up such an
What we're
ambush
searching
and
for
went to
this
great
time is
lengths
the
to
underground
capture her.
base that Tian
Why
Yun
not
set
go
up
with the
nearby?
flow and follow them
The
to take a
target is
look?
very dangerous.
Nothing ventured,
It might
nothing
be a new
gained.
type of medicine
This was
man
clearly
with
a pretty
extremely
good
strong
idea, but
corpse
Duan
poison.
Yu, this guy just wouldn't
Everyone
agree no matter
fears
what.
death. But from the day
in
we
short,
joined to
be
kill the
obedient
heavenly
and leave
fate,
this matter
we
to
must
me.
face death head
Duan
on.
Yu helplessly
In the
glanced at
future,
her and
there will be
pointed at the
countless
zither-playing
difficulties
corpse
waiting
puppet
for
number
us to
16,
overcome. Who was
Today
hovering
is
in
just
the
the
air
beginning.
and on the verge of death
When
from the
Arber,
demonic
Duan
emperor's
Yu,
fire.
and the others
Do
arrived
you
at
want
the
to spare
military
his
field,
life?
Ere Rong
Arber
had
nodded.
already finished his
Duan Yu
impassioned
immediately
speech.
withdrew the
Leading a
flames
group
on the
of people,
zither-playing corpse
Meiz was
puppet's
currently
body.
distributing
A thin
life-saving
whip formed
pills
from
and
the
some
water
weapons to
spirit
his
coiled around the
subordinates.
zither-playing corpse puppet's tattered body and abruptly dragged it in front of them. Duan Yu
Chapter
directly threw that
45-94.
zombie onto the ground.
Arber walked over
Bang.
and glanced at the group.
After a loud noise,
Suddenly he
a
paused
tattered
and
ancient
calmly
zither
walked
fell
towards
from
the
the
karst
sky
cave.
and smashed heavily
After
on the
entering
ground,
the karst cave,
breaking into
he
two
looked
halves
left
on the
and
spot.
right to make sure there
The
was no one
zither-stroking
around.
corpse puppet
It was only
probably
then that
still
Xiao Mu
breathing.
waved her hand,
Arber took out a
releasing
ceiling
several
ball and
figures.
stuffed it inside.
Qi Xinshan
Then
giggled
she
as
threw
she
the
pounced
ceiling ball
forward
into
hugged
an
him.
empty storage
I am my
talisman.
Jojo, long
Doing
time
this
no
would
see.
provide double
Look,
protection.
have I changed?
Of course, it was
You've
to prevent
leveled
this
up,
zombie from
Arber
causing
said
trouble inside
expressionlessly.
the storage talisman and tearing
Qi
it open on
Xinshan
its
laughed
own.
with her hands on
As
her
long
hips.
as the ceiling ball
Not
broke,
only have I
she would
leveled up,
immediately
my
sense it
spiritual
and take
sense has
measures.
also improved
But
greatly.
judging from this
I am
zombie's
now a
dying
level
state,
12
she
great
reckoned that he
spiritual
wouldn't be
master.
able to do anything.
How is it?
Very good, Arber nodded. Little Fatty ran forward with his belly bulging. He asked with a puzzled expression. Chapter
Jojo,
46:16.
why did Xiaoqiu tell me
Arber
that you
thought
found
that
a
this
long-lost
zither-playing
brother
zombie
for me
number
the moment I
16
came
was
out?
an important fighter
Arber's
of
mouth
flying
twitched.
paradise,
So
he
it would be
glanced at
useful
this
to keep
fellow's
her
bulging
around.
belly.
The
After a
four-winged,
moment of
three-eyed
silence,
harpy
he saw
said,
that the
I'll let you
situation
guys
wasn't
go to
right
the
and
Tingy
roared.
mystic realm
That
to see
sharp
my
voice
fat
seemed to
senior
want to
brother.
pierce everyone's
Jojo
eardrums.
was such a scammer.
Following its shriek,
He actually told
the
little
entire
Fatty
army
that
of
his
corpse
fat senior
puppets
brother was
retreated
his
in
relative.
unison like marionettes.
Jojo, you
no
found a
longer
senior
lingering
brother?
in the battle.
Yes.
Seeing
Not
this,
only
Qi
that,
Xinshan
I also
shouted,
found many of the
surround him,
Xuanji
surround
school's
him.
first-generation
Don't
disciples.
let them escape.
escape, Arbor said calmly.
Don't let a single
you
one
can
escape.
meet many new friends
If
this
these
time.
zombies are released,
That's great.
it will definitely be a disaster.
Chuckled.
Everyone
I love meeting
hastened
new
their
friends
movements.
the most.
Spirit
Mata
weapons
rubbed his
flew
chin and
everywhere,
smiled
and the
wretchedly.
power of the five
As
spirits
for me, I
collided
love
randomly
following
in the
JoJo
air,
around and
exploding
robbing
into
people.
balls of
Don't you know how to
five-colored
speak?
spirit light one
What,
after
robbing
another.
people?
Seeing
When has
that there
JoJo
was
ever
nothing
done
else
such
for her to
things?
do, Arbor found a clean glass to sit on
and corrected him.
Her petite face was
This is
still
called
panting with
upholding
anger.
justice.
Look at
That's
how good
right.
her original plan
Arbor
was.
expressionlessly
As long as
turned
she
and
pretended
walked
to be
out.
caught and followed
His
that group of
slightly
idiots
raised
back
lips showed that
they
he
would
was in an
immediately
extremely
find
good
her.
mood.
Then he would
Just
be
as he
able to
reached
find
the entrance of the
Wuchinya,
karst
who was
cave,
hiding in the
he
rat
met
hole
Fairy
by
Yellow
following
Crane
the
who
vine
was
to the
looking
melon.
for him.
This
Little
woman was
Yellow
too
Crane
annoying.
said excitedly,
She had already
I heard that
completely
you guys
lost her
are
planning
patience.
to find the
Her
underground
desire
base of
to make
Heavenly
her die
Fate.
a horrible death
I'm going
intensified
to.
as time passed.
I have to go too.
Jojo,
Are you hiding something
Wang
from
Yan and
us?
Xiao Xiao along?
Duan Yu tugged
Arbor
at her
thought
and
for a
asked
moment
seriously,
and said,
is
"The
there
things
something
we
you
need to
can't
deal with
say?
this time might be a
Nothing.
little tricky.
What could there be?
When the time
It's
comes,
nothing.
if there's any danger,
Arbor
stay
shook
on
her
the
head.
ship with the
No,
pharmacist."
you are not. Don't come
Duan
down
Yu
recklessly.
glanced at her. Huang
Just
He
now,
nodded
you suddenly
repeatedly.
had a whim to
As
pretend
long
to
as
be
he could
caught
take
and
her on the
follow those
road,
people
she would
back.
agree to anything.
Is it because you have your own
Jojo,
ideas
the ship
and have
we
no
came on
choice
doesn't
but to
seem to
follow
be big
them?
enough to
I
accommodate
hope you
so
can
many
speak
people.
frankly. If we don't
Yuan
use
Yu
a
stared
boat
at
and
her.
just use an air
Speak
transportation
clearly.
spiritual
What?
artifact,
The
I reckon
venerable
that it's
Peach Blossom
easy to get
immortal,
lost in the
little
sea.
Taisui, and the
There's
others
a
rushed
boat.
over. Arbor nodded.
When they heard this, their
It's big enough.
expressions
The
involuntarily
crimson
shifted.
firmament blue waves could
You were
hold as
planning
many
to take
people
the risk
as they
yourself
wanted.
just now?
Arbor had personally
Who told you
tested
to
the
do that?
mutated space inside
Did it
the
have
ship,
to go to that
and it was
extent?
almost endless.
Did you have to enter
Therefore,
the
there was
tiger's
no
den
need to
alone?
think too much about
Everyone
the movement
chimed
of more
in
than
at once,
30,000
giving Sir
soldiers.
Jojo a headache.
Huang He followed
He
behind her.
immediately raised his hands
eyes
in surrender
brightened as he
and
grinned and
repeatedly
said,
grumbled,
"That's good,
all
that's
right,
good.
all right.
Then
I did have that thought just
little
now,
fatty Mata,
but
you've all
Duan
come
Yu he
out."
obstructed me.
Everyone
Arbor
smiled and nodded at
expressionlessly
her.
said,
I don't have that
skipped
thought
forward
anymore.
and grabbed her hand.
Why would you have such
Little
an
yellow
idea?
crane, it's been a
Everyone
long time.
grabbed her and wanted
How
to
was
get
it?
to the bottom of
How
it.
was your life in the
Arbor
heavenly
pointed
pill
at the
auction?
four-winged,
It was
three-eyed
very
harpy in the
fulfilling.
air.
Every day,
If you
I
keep
could develop
chattering
pills
around
with
me,
a
it's
group
going
of
to escape.
like-minded pill friends.
Escape.
I didn't have
He
to
chin
worry
sneered.
about the cost of
Where
materials.
can it escape to?
My days were
This
simply
place
too
is already
beautiful.
under our control.
There's nowhere for them to run.
Okay.
Chapter
Arbor waved
45,
his little
95.
hand.
Then you guys stay here. Fairy
I'll go look
Huang he
elsewhere.
couldn't help but laugh
After
out
saying
loud
this,
when she
the
was
little
pleased
fellow
with
knew that
herself.
he was in the wrong,
Qi
so he
Xian
fled
covered
with
her
her
guilty
mouth and
conscience.
chuckled.
Duan
She
Yu
patted her
furrowed his
hand and
brows
said,
as he watched
"Little
her
Huang
fleeing
He,
figure.
let's chat on the way."
She has a purpose,
Okay.
but she doesn't say it.
Huang He repeatedly
He
said
chin
okay
sighed.
and waved her
She
hand
always
at
wants
Arbor
to
with
do
a
everything
smile.
by herself.
I'll go call
I
little
really don't know
Super
if
Pang
I
and the
should
others.
praise her for being
Let's meet at the
independent
beach
or
later.
vexed.
Okay.
Vexed, of course it's
Qi
vexed.
Xian readily
The little
agreed
fatty
and turned to
scratched
look
his
at
head
Arbor.
and said,
I
"Should we
see that
send
little
someone
Huang
to
He
follow
seems
her?"
to be in better spirits.
That's fine too.
She
I'll send
doesn't
a
even
team
have
to
time
kill
to
the
drink
heavenly
water
fate
when
realm
she
to
gets
follow
busy.
her. Arbor said
Otherwise,
aloofly,
this little fellow would
she's
keep
fully
thinking
immersed
about
in refining
entering the
pills,
tiger's
so she
den.
naturally won't
Who knew
remember
if something
other
bad
bad
would
things.
happen?
I've
That's
been too
true.
busy recently,
Qi
so I'll give you
Xian
guys an
nodded and
extra
turned to
chapter
glance
on the
at
Mata
Mata.
and the others.
Let's go.
We'll talk after we get out. The appearance of Qi Xian and the others was very sudden. Before they set off, Ali
Chapter
noticed that there was something
46:17.
fishy about them. There was no reason
He
why she
tugged
had
at
to follow
Yas's
them.
sleeve and pulled
It
him
was
to the
just
side
out
of
of to whisper a
selfishness.
few words to him.
This selfishness had been
Yassi
hidden in
looked in
her
the
heart for a
direction
long
his younger
time.
brother was
Due
pointing
to her
at and
vengeful
glanced at
nature,
his younger
due
brother
to her
in very
very
dark, vengeful
What's
mentality.
so strange about this?
Yes, she wanted that woman to die a horrible death.
It's not like
She
this
wanted
is
to
the
dig
first
her out
time.
of the rat hole,
This little
crush her
stoic
flesh into
side would
pieces,
frequently have
and
a
then
few
put her to
people
death by
disappear and a
1,000
few
cuts.
more
Arbor
appear.
pulled out a vine
He was
whip
already
and
used
smashed
to
a
it.
stone blocking
It was
the way
hard
in
on
front of
Ali
her.
to constantly
She
stare
ran
at
all
this
the way to the beach,
cold-faced little
took a deep
stoic
breath,
as if
and
staring at her
exhaled.
would cause
It was
problems.
really annoying to bury
Don't provoke
hatred
her.
in one's heart.
Ming Yassi
But this
glanced at
person
him
had
and warned,
enmity with her
if
for
you
2
don't want to
lifetimes.
follow Akir to the
If she
northern
didn't take
desert to
revenge,
train,
she would be
then
letting
speak
down the
less
many
and do
suffering
more.
she had suffered
Ali
in her
pursed his
previous
lips
life.
and grumbled in
She would
agreement.
also be letting down
However,
the carefree
his
and
eyes were
unrestrained
still
way she
unwilling
had
to
in
give
this
up
life.
and constantly
Whoever
stared
said
at
that
Arbor's
one must
side.
repay evil
Why
with
was
good
Big
was an
Brother
idiot.
so indifferent?
How could there be
In
so
reality,
much holy
what
light
he
in this
wanted to
world?
tell Big Brother
How
was
could there
that
be
after
so
he
much
constantly
kindness and
paid
virtue?
attention to the little
She just
stoic's
wanted to
movements,
personally end
he
this
discovered
feud
and
and
put
put
an
an
end
end
to
to
her
her
previous
previous
life
life
in
and
this
abilities
life.
well.
It could
She
also
had
be
stored
considered
large
as groups
groups
of
herself
people
in
in
the
the
storage
storage
talismans
talismans
she drew.
Why couldn't she
If
fight
their
back after
underworld
being
province
fooled for
soldiers
2
clashed with the
lifetimes?
people of the divine
She and
prefecture,
Muchinya would
the
settle
little
the score
stoic would
between her
absolutely
previous
pull
life
out a
and
bunch
this
of
life.
people from her storage
Now, she didn't
talisman
have
and
much
slice them
patience
into
to play the
pieces
cat
in a
and
matter
mouse
of
game
minutes.
with this woman.
It was just that
She
those
wanted to
people
crush
were
her.
really weird. Now this
Something
moment,
like a
this
storage
moment,
talisman
she didn't
wouldn't
want to
feel
wait
good
for
staying
another
inside.
second. Arbor
TSK,
suddenly turned
TSK.
around and looked
Ali
coldly
clicked his
at the
tongue
dozen
and muttered to
four-winged,
himself,
three-eyed harpies
"Don't
standing
suffocate
behind
her."
her.
Who
The
knew how
corners of her
long these
mouth
people
curled
would
up
stay
into
in
a
the
storage
sneer?
talisman. Sure enough,
Who
they
knew
still
what it would
hadn't
be
given
like to
up
stay
and
in the
still wanted
storage
to take her
talisman?
away. It must
She
be
didn't
very
wait for them
painful.
here in
Arbor
vain.
didn't know what Alex
The
was
instructions
thinking.
Muchinya
Even
gave
if
to
he
this
knew,
group of
he would
harpies
only
were
roll his
probably
eyes at
capture
him
her
and
at all
retort with
costs
3
and bring
words.
Arbor back.
Mind your own
It
business.
doesn't matter if you're injured injured
She
or
waited
not.
by the beach for
It
a
doesn't
short
matter
while
if you're
before she saw
seriously
Crown
injured,
Prince Rong
as
leading
long
the
as you're still
soldiers from
breathing,
the three
it's fine.
prefectures in an orderly
Oh.
manner.
The door
He
of
then
the
took
cabin
out a
was
sealing
kicked
ball
open
from
by
his
someone,
sleeve and threw
and
it
the
out.
entire moving
The
wooden
soldiers in
plank
the front
crashed
row
into the
saw it
cabin,
very clearly,
breaking into
when
several
the sealing
pieces.
ball was thrown
Gong
out,
Song
a
Fong
huge
walked into the
three-story
cabin
ship
with a
slid
group
out
of
from it
people.
and sank into
The
the
silver
water.
ghost mask
It
on his
followed the
face
rolling
reflected
waves
a
and
cold
slid out
arc.
for some distance.
Who told you to set up
Your
the
Majesty.
ambush?
Who
Crown
told you
Prince
to
Rong
send the
quickly
mutated
walked through on
three-eyed
your
harpy
side
in
and
number
looked at
16?
Qishao Blue Waves
Mu Qingya,
curiously.
I need your explanation.
We only prepared this ship.
If you don't have a reasonable
It's more than
explanation,
enough to
don't
accommodate
blame me
all
for
of
being
us.
heartless and
Duan
severely
Yu nodded
punishing you for
faintly.
violating the
Led
rules
your
of the
men up
organization.
first. Gather everyone on the deck for
Xiaoxue,
now.
who was sitting on the edge of Mu Qingya's
Rong
couch,
Qing nodded
was
and turned to
startled by
lead
their
the
menacing
soldiers onto the
appearance.
ship.
She hurriedly stood up and called out timidly, "Mother?" Mu Qingya patted her hand soothingly and slowly tugged at the silk
Chapter
robe draped over her body.
4596.
Glancing
After
at
boarding
Gong
the ship,
Songfeng,
everyone
Mu Qingya
finally
smiled
realized
faintly.
how big the ship was.
She stood up gracefully
Everyone
and
was
bowed.
extremely shocked and
All
gasped
Master
in
Gong,
amazement.
why are you so angry?
Gathered on the broad
Of course,
bow deck,
I'm doing this
the
because I
soldiers
have
of the
the edict in my
looked
hands.
forward with
Mu
shining
Qingya
eyes.
smiled at Gong
Could this be a
Songfeng.
holy weapon? He raised his
muttered
hand
to
to
himself
himself
as
as
he
he
rolled
looked
up
left
piece
and
of
right,
paper from
feeling
his
like he
sleeve.
couldn't see the end
If
of
Hall
it.
Master Gong
This
doesn't
little
believe
stoic
me, you
was
can
too
take a look at it
extravagant.
yourself.
She casually
Gong
took out a
Song
holy
Feng
weapon.
took the parchment
No
from
wonder she
Wuchenya
always
and
looked so
skimmed through it.
confident. When he
If it was
raised his head
anyone
again,
else,
his
they would
eyes
also
were
be so
extremely
confident
sharp
that
as
they
he
could
stared at
casually take out a
Wuchenya.
holy weapon.
He gritted his
The
teeth
rooms
and
have
forced out
already
a
been
few
prepared
words.
for you.
You're
Rest
indeed
yourselves.
capable.
Someone
Hall
will
Master
naturally
Gong,
call
you
you out in
flatter me.
advance when you reach the base.
Wuchenya smiled and stuffed
There's
the
nothing
parchment
else.
back into her
Do
sleeve.
you have anything else to
She
say?
looked up at Gong
Arbor
Song
looked
Feng.
at Duan Yu, Ming Yasi, Rong Qing and Long Qing. The four of them shook their heads. Meanwhile, Long Shangyun raised her hand and yawned. Chapter 46.
I'm going back to my room to sleep
Actually,
first.
Hall Master Gong
She could be
doesn't need to be
considered
so
familiar
angry.
with the crimson nimbus
Wuchenya said
waves and
unhurriedly
find
as
the
she
room
smoothed out the
in
creases
before.
on her thin
With the
muslin
crimson
outer robe.
nimbus waves,
If we
there
can
were no
successfully
issues with
capture
its
her
speed
this
and
time,
defense.
I'll put in a
In
few
any
good
case,
words
she
for
only
Hall
needed
Master
to sleep
Gong
for
and
a
his
while,
group in front of
and they would
Master.
almost reach their
Wuchenya
destination
didn't
by the
even
time
need to
she
look at
opened
Gong
her eyes.
Songfeng's face under
How
his
is it?
mask to know that
Arbor
Hall
glanced
Master Gong's
sideways at
expression
Duan
must
Yu.
be very
The latter
unsightly
was
right
currently
now.
looking at the
Just
jade
looking at
messenger
Vice Hall
talisman in
Master
his
Ming's
hand.
slightly pale
After
face
skimming
behind
through
him,
10 lines at a
Wuchenya
glance,
couldn't help
he
but
handed
feel
the
a
jade
strange
messenger
excitement
talisman
flash
to
through her
Xiao
heart.
Mu.
If she
The
captured the
closest
little
stronghold
stoic
should be a
and ordered
small
people to
coastal
cut
fishing
open her
village
stomach
about a
in front
day's
of them
journey
to
from
take out
here.
the mermaid pearl,
Arbor
wouldn't that
nodded.
be very interesting?
With the crimson
She
nimbus
was truly
wave
too
speed,
blessed and
it
too
should only
lucky.
take half a day.
Why was a
We
10,000
should
year
reach
old
our
mermaid
destination
pearl in
by
her body?
daybreak tomorrow.
She had already fallen to a place
Duan
like
Yu
the
nodded
Lord
with
Star
agreement
domain,
and
so
said,
how could she still
Jojo,
grow up
you've
so
probably
smoothly?
talked for several
This
months
shouldn't
today,
be the
right?
case at all.
You
All
must
of
be
her
very
plans
tired.
had come to naught.
Quickly go rest.
Back then, when
Arbor
Wuchenya
stroked
first
his
saw
small
the little
face and
stoic in
nodded
the Mu
earnestly.
family of the Divine
You're right.
Province,
See
she
you
knew that
tomorrow
nearly
then.
half of her
Duan
overall
Yu
plan had
chuckled.
already been
Go
ruined.
then.
She
The
wanted
next
to
morning,
take a
Yellow
gamble for
Crane
herself
Fairy,
and
who
her
was
daughter.
also staying in the
It would be
third floor
great if she
cabin,
could seize this
knocked on Arbor's
opportunity,
door.
but if she couldn't,
Arbor
then
was
it should be
washing
fate.
up when he heard the
The
urgent knocking on the
10,000-year-old
door.
mermaid pearl could
He
pull a
wiped his
dying
face
infant
and
back
walked
to
the
the
door.
brink of death.
As soon as the
All
door
these
opened,
years,
Fairy
it had
Yellow
been
Crane
imperceptibly
charged in,
influencing
followed by
the
the
little
grinning
stoic's
chief's
constitution.
Oh my
It must
god,
be like
oh my
this.
god.
It must be
Jojo,
like
do
this.
you know what happened
If the
last night?
10,000-year-old
I went
mermaid
to the
pearl
deck
was
to
in
take
her
a look
Schwer's
today.
body,
There
there
were
were
schools
schools
of
of could
dead
also
fish
become a
piled up on
powerful
the side
figure
of the
who
ship,
could look up to
and there
heaven
were
and
many
earth
things
without
with
needing
broken
to rely
limbs.
on anyone to survive.
While we were asleep last night,
Opportunity.
the ship was
All
attacked
she
by a
lacked was
school
an
of corpse
opportunity,
fish and
and
underwater
this opportunity
puppets.
was about
Do
to
we need
arrive
anything?
very soon.
Arbor glanced at her and
glanced at
asked.
Fan Meng with a smile.
I'm fine.
Vice Hall
Fairy
Master
Yellow
Meng
Crane
was
was
taken
taken
aback.
aback. Are you
She
sick?
looked up and saw Arbor
What do
wringing
you
the
want to
towel
do
to
to
her?
her?
To wipe his face
Fan
and
Meng
hanging it
seemed to see
aside.
the little girl's
He
cold
said
and clear
calmly,
eyes
"Let's
staring
eat
at her
breakfast."
without any signs
Qi
of life.
Xian couldn't
A
resist
wave of
chuckling
icy
and patted
coldness
Yellow
instantly
Crane's shoulder.
assaulted his heart.
Those
Previously,
when the little girl said that they were
through the
lying to
crimson
her,
nimbus
her
waves
gaze was so
defenses.
cold that it
Yellow
could almost
Crane
shatter
wouldn't
ice
followed
shards.
the little stoic
Fan Meng
downstairs.
couldn't forget that gaze
Jojo,
for a
you knew
long
this would
time,
happen?
and she
There are so
inexplicably
many
woke
living
up from her
people's
dreams
auras
several
several
times.
times.
It
It was
simply
as
as
if
if
the
the
little
little
girl's
girl's
icy
icy
underwater
claws were
corpse
clutching her
fish and
neck.
corpse puppets.
How would the little girl
Will
punish the
definitely
swindler?
suffer an attack. Fan Meng.
Qi Xian
The red
patted
robed
her
man
hand
turned
and
to
said,
look at her and
"Don't
frowned
worry, the
slightly.
crimson nimbus waves
Recently,
are much more
Fan Meng
powerful
and
than
Fan
we
Yu were a
imagined."
little absent-minded.
They were not in the right state and would be distracted from time to time. Wuchenya looked at Fan Meng with pity. Chapter 45.
She pursed her lips and
said with a smile,
"So many corpse
If Vice
fish
Hall
suddenly
Master
gathered
Meng isn't feeling
underwater,
well,
could
then
it
you
be
should
that
stay in the
someone
cabin and
purposely
rest
attracted
instead
them
of
here?
walking around?" Huang He immediately
As for how I'm
thought
going
of a
to deal with that
conspiracy
stoic
theory.
face,
That shouldn't
be.
Wuchenya's eyes
Qi
gradually
Xian
turned
and Huang
cold.
He chatted
Isn't
casually,
it written
but
clearly
their
on
feet
Master
didn't stop
Silk
as they
paper?
followed Arbor to the
Die.
deck.
Fan
Everyone's
Meng's
heart
had already
trembled as
gathered
her
and
slender
was
body
happily
swayed
distributing
slightly.
some nutrition
Fan
pills.
Yu hurriedly reached
Seeing
out
the
to
happy
support his
expressions
arm.
on their faces,
She turned to look at
Arbor felt that
Wuchenya
it
and
was a
said
little
coldly,
strange.
"You,
Instead of eating
dream
these
of 1,000
pills,
years?"
Arbor was
Fan Yu
actually more
scoffed
willing to
coldly
eat a
and said,
bowl of
"Those
home-cooked
shrimp
rice
soldiers
porridge.
and crab generals
Wasn't
you
this
sent
more
out
delicious?
simply can't do
Qi
anything to the
Xian
little
pursed her
stoic.
lips and said,
So
"Don't
what's
be
there to be
delusional.
happy about?
Reporting to
Isn't it
Hall
just a
Master
few
Gong
pills?
and Hall Master
It's
Ming,
better to have a bowl of red braised harpy pork. Has returned with his team. Arbor nodded in agreement. Wang He was speechless. The soldiers of the 3 prefectures probably wouldn't understand the world of a foodie. Oh right, Huang He, you should have advanced to a heaven-grade alchemist now, right? The 4-winged, 3-eyed mutated harpy had shyly tugged at the corner of his eyes involuntarily. I shouldn't have reached the realm of a heaven-grade alchemist. Did you find anything? After all, they captured a young woman, and she's on the deck right now. And sometimes they hover around the hastily walked outside, sometimes suppressing a hint of excitement in her eyes. I feel that it's still not that stable. With the spirit binding rope? nodded. Did you lock her conscious pool at the first moment? During this period of condition now, you should concentrate on refining more pills. How are the people around her now? After accumulating them for a certain amount of time, it will naturally break through that barrier and bring you to a higher place. Hallmaster Mu. Huang He put away his voice came from behind, nodded solemnly. Mu Qingyao frowned slightly. Becoming a heaven-grade alchemist was one of her dreams, blossomed on her face, but she never thought that she would actually achieve it one day. Why
All
aren't
of
you
this was
resting in your
thanks
room?
to Jojo,
Did
who
the
gave her
servants fail to
demonstrations
serve
and
you well?
wonders from time to
You can
time,
just tell me.
allowing her to
Mao
make
Yang's
great
cold
progress
gaze
on the
swept
path
over
of
her
alchemy.
smiling face.
There are two
This old man
skeleton
heard
war
that you
flags in
captured
front.
that little girl.
Atsong province guard
Muqingya's
suddenly
heart
shouted,
tightened,
and her
everyone
eyelids
turned
twitched
to look,
heavily.
and indeed,
What they saw a
Great
battleship
Master Mao
sailing
Yang
very
was also
quickly towards
interested
them
in
at
that
full
little
speed.
stoic.
The two
How could that
skeleton
be?
war flags
She
raised at the
absolutely
bow of
wouldn't
the
hand
ship
this
were
person
quite
over to
eye-catching,
anyone else.
as if they were announcing
Great
something.
Master, please forgive
Look
me.
at the hull of their
This
ship.
young lady is
What's that
someone
thing
that my
engraved
humble
on it?
master wants.
It looks
Mao
like a
Yang
giant
sneered.
beast covered in
Hall
flames.
Master Mu, in this
Yes,
old man's
yes,
opinion,
it's a fire
you
beast
can't
stepping
swallow
on a
the good
fireball.
stuff on this young
A
lady.
fire nightmare is a fire
Muqingya's
nightmare that
expression
is
didn't
equivalent
change,
to a ninth
but
level
perilous
spirit
waves
fire.
were surging in her
Fire
heart.
jade beast. What, this old
What a
geezer
huge
also
fire
came for the
master.
10,000-year-old
This beast's
mermaid
body
pearl.
is probably
Where did he
comparable to
find
an
out
adult
that Arbor
phoenix?
had the
Duan
10,000-year-old
Yu was currently
mermaid
holding
pearl.
a pot of porridge
This
as
is
he
this old
slowly
man's
walked
first
towards
time
Arbor.
seeing someone truly
He turned a
refined
deaf ear
amidst
to
those
those
high-pitched shouts.
A feverish glint
He came
flashed
to
through the
Arbor's
old
side and
geezer's
said
eyes.
with a smile,
I
"Come and have
this
some
little
porridge.
fellow has refined
Colorful
more than
divine
one
mystic
realm.
realm.
It's
Her
delicious
conscience
and
must be
fragrant.
connected to the
I guarantee
divine
you'll
realm
like
she
it."
carries with her." Jojo's eyes suddenly lit up. The old
Qi
geezer laughed
Shen,
wildly.
who was at the side,
This little
hurriedly
girl is
followed
mine
after
for
him.
sure. She had an
Muqingya
expression
looked
that
said,
dumbfoundedly
"Good things
at the
need to
old
be
geezer
shared
who
with good
walked to the
friends."
deck ahead of her.
Fuck, that
She
ship is
nearly
heading
shattered
straight
her
for us.
teeth from clenching
A team
them,
leader
and
of the
she forced her
Shenzhou
voice
team
out.
standing at the front
Hurry,
of the
go.
deck
Could not help but curse.
This old geezer's
With a
realm
wave of
was
his hand,
unfathomable.
the members of
If
his
he wanted
team
to
all
snatch
drew their
someone,
bows and
even the
aimed at
100
ships that
people
were
on the
rushing
ship
towards
wouldn't
them.
be his match.
Duan Yu
Of
carefully
course,
scooped a
if
bowl
all
of
of the
porridge for the
three-eyed
little
harpies
girl
were
and
gathered
chuckled without
together,
even turning
they
his
might
head.
be able to defeat the
Quickly
old
drink
man.
it while it's hot.
It was just that this
You can
old
only
man was
fight when you're
originally
full.
a guest
The
elder
little
of the
stoic's
Stoic's
eyes shone even brighter.
The formation grandmaster,
She picked up the
and was
porridge and
highly
drank a
valued
mouthful
by the
before
master.
blinking at Duan Yu and
Muqingya
saying,
didn't want to
"You're
fall out with the
absolutely
old
right."
man unless she had
She
no
would
other
only
choice.
have the strength to beat
She was
people
just an
when she
ordinary
was full.
person.
If
Thump.
she were to chase
A dull
away an
thud was
array
heard.
master in such a high-profile manner, the organization would definitely not let her off. Muqingya took a deep breath and hurriedly followed the old man to the deck. Fan Ming, Gong Song Feng, and the others hurriedly followed. When they reached the deck, they saw an expressionless young lady standing alone in the middle of the deck. She had a spirit-binding rope on her hand, and her eyes were as cold as ice as she looked over. After passing through the crowd, his gaze finally landed on Muqingya. An imperceptible coldness appeared on his lips. A meaningful light flashed in his eyes. "Ah!" Mao Yang opened his arms to welcome her. "It's really you, little girl?" "Grandmaster Mao Yang, hurry up and seal her consciousness." "Do I need you to tell me that?" Mao Yang sneered and impatiently glanced at Muqingya. "As long as she steps on this ship, she won't be able to escape even if she has wings. However, if she's willing to enter her own divine realm, that's not impossible." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.